The moment Mara Elloway's hand stopped shaking long enough to lock the library door, she knew the night would break her. Her best friend's mother was dying in a hospital across Chicago, and Mara had no money, no car, and no way to reach her before the last bus stopped running. So she walked into the October rain with nothing but fear and a dead phone. That's when two men stepped out of the shadows and followed her into the dark. What happened next would drag her into a world where protection costs more than freedom, where the most dangerous man in Chicago had been watching her for years, and where surviving meant learning that sometimes the monster under your bed is the only thing standing between you and worse monsters outside. If you want to see how far a quiet librarian can fall before she learns to fight back, stay until the end. Hit like, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels tonight. Met. The rain wasn't supposed to be this cold in October, but Chicago didn't care what anyone expected. Mara Elloway locked the side door of the Harold Washington Library Center and heard the bolt click into place with a sound that felt too final, too permanent for a Tuesday night. Her hands were shaking. They'd been shaking since Elena's call came through 20 minutes ago. Since the words, "your mom in critical condition," and "you need to come now," had shattered the quiet of the empty reading room. The library was supposed to close at 9. It was 10:15. Mara had stayed late because Mr. Kowalski always stayed late on Tuesdays to read the architectural journals in the third-floor alcove, and she couldn't lock up while an old man who'd lost his wife 6 months ago sat alone with pictures of buildings he'd never design again. So she'd waited. She'd restocked the return cart. She'd alphabetized the mystery section that didn't need alphabetizing. And now Elena's mother was dying, and Mara had $16 in her checking account, and the last southbound bus had left 7 minutes ago. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. State Street was empty in that specific way that made a city feel like a graveyard. A few cars drifted past, headlights cutting through the rain, but no cabs. Never a cab when you needed one. Mara's phone was dead. She'd forgotten to charge it. Again. The anxiety that lived in her chest like a second heartbeat started to kick harder. Just walk. It's 12 blocks. You've walked farther, except she hadn't. Not at night, not alone, not through this part of the city where the streetlights flickered and the storefronts went dark after 8, and the sidewalks smelled like piss and old rain. She made it 4 blocks before she noticed them. 2 men, one in a black jacket, the other in gray. They'd been behind her since she passed the shuttered convenience store on the corner of State and Van Buren. She told herself it was coincidence. People walked at night. The city was full of people. But when she crossed the street, they crossed 30 seconds later. When she sped up, they sped up. Her pulse started doing that thing it did before a panic attack, the stammering, uneven rhythm that made her lightheaded and nauseous and unable to think straight. She dug her nails into her palms. The pain was supposed to ground her. That's what the therapist she couldn't afford anymore had said. Pain is an anchor. It didn't work. The men were closer now. Close enough that she could hear their footsteps hitting the wet pavement in sync with hers. Close enough that when she glanced back, she saw the one in the gray jacket smile. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said, "We know you're alone." Mara's breath came faster. Her vision started to narrow at the edges. The rain got louder, or maybe it was just the blood pounding in her ears. She tried to run, but her legs felt like they were moving through water, slow and thick and useless. Not now. Please, not now. The panic attack hit her like a fist to the chest. Her knees buckled. She went down hard on the sidewalk, palms scraping against the concrete, rain soaking through her jeans. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but curl into herself and wait for the world to stop spinning. She heard footsteps, closer, faster. Then she heard a car. It came out of nowhere, a black SUV with tinted windows that pulled up to the curb so fast the tires screeched. A door opened. Someone stepped out. Mara's vision was too blurred to make out details, but she heard a voice, low, calm, the kind of voice that didn't ask questions. "Back off." 2 words. That's all it took. The footsteps behind her stopped. Then they retreated, fast. Mara tried to lift her head, but the world tilted sideways. Strong hands caught her before she hit the pavement again. She was lifted, too easily, like she weighed nothing. And then she was inside the SUV, and the door was closing, and the last thing she saw before her vision went completely black was a man's face. Sharp jawline, dark eyes, a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. and then nothing. Otab. Mara woke up on a couch that cost more than her annual salary. She knew that before she even opened her eyes. The leather was too soft. The air smelled like expensive cologne and wood polish. When she finally forced her eyelids apart, she saw a ceiling that was at least 15 feet high, crown molding that looked hand-carved, and a chandelier that belonged in a museum. "You're awake." The voice came from her left. Mara jerked upright too fast and her head swam. She gripped the arm of the couch and tried to focus. The man sitting in the chair across from her was the same one from the SUV. She was sure of it. Same scar, same dark eyes that didn't blink enough. He was watching her the way a scientist might watch a specimen under glass, detached, clinical, but with a flicker of something else underneath. Curiosity, maybe. Or ownership. "Where am I?" Mara's voice came out hoarse. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Somewhere safe." He didn't move, didn't smile, just kept watching her with that unnerving stillness that made her skin crawl. "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now." Mara's heart started hammering again. She looked around the room, cataloging details the way she used to catalog books. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Lake Michigan, furniture that screamed old money, a marble fireplace with a fire that crackled too perfectly to be real. This wasn't a house. It was a fortress. "Who are you?" she asked. He tilted his head slightly like the question amused him. "Cassian Vale." The name hit her like a punch to the gut. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. You didn't have to be connected to know it. You just had to read the news. Listen to the whispers. Pay attention when people lowered their voices in bars and alleys and courtrooms. Cassian Vale, the man who controlled half the South Side, the man who made people disappear, the man whose enemies had a habit of turning up in the Chicago River with their hands still bound. Mara's mouth went dry. Yes. Why did you—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Her brain was too busy screaming, "Run, run, run," to form coherent words. Cassian leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other with the ease of someone who'd never felt threatened in his life. "Those men following you weren't random. They were professionals, hired to track you, possibly take you." "Take me where?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Mara stared at him. "You're lying." "I don't lie." He said it like it was a fact, not a boast. "Lying is inefficient." "Then why would anyone want to—" She stopped. The absurdity of it all crashed over her. "I'm a librarian. I'm nobody." "You're somebody to someone," Cassian said, "and that someone paid a lot of money to have you watched." The room felt too small, too hot. Mara stood up, even though her legs were still shaky, even though every instinct told her sitting was safer. "I need to leave." "No, that's not your decision." "It is now." Mara's hands curled into fists. "You can't just—" "I can." Cassian stood too, and the movement was so smooth, so controlled, that it made her take a step back. "You walked into a situation you don't understand. Those men are still out there. If I let you leave, they'll find you again. And next time, I won't be there. I didn't ask for your help." "You didn't have to." There was something in his voice that made her stop. Something that felt less like a threat and more like a promise. She studied his face, trying to find the monster everyone said he was. But all she saw was a man who looked tired. A man with shadows under his eyes, and a scar that suggested he'd survived things most people didn't. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. For the first time, Cassian hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for her to notice. "Because I made a promise," he said. Elena was alive. That was the first thing Mara learned when Cassian handed her a phone. Not hers. A burner with a single number programmed in. She called the hospital. A nurse told her that Elena's mother had stabilized. Critical, but stable. Surgery scheduled for tomorrow morning. Elena was in the waiting room. Mara wanted to cry, or scream, or both. Instead, she just held the phone and stared at the wall. "You need to eat," Cassian said from somewhere behind her. "I'm not hungry." "You're going into shock. Eat." A plate appeared in front of her. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a glass of water that was probably filtered through diamonds or something equally ridiculous. Mara ignored it. "I need to see her," she said. "Not tonight. She's my best friend." And if you show up at the hospital, whoever hired those men will know exactly where you are. Cassian sat down across from her again. You want to help her? Stay here. Stay quiet. Let me figure out who's looking for you and why. This is insane. Mara finally looked at him, really looked. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. His suit probably cost more than her rent. His watch definitely did. But there was something raw in his expression, something that didn't match the polished exterior. It's reality, he said. Your reality. Not mine. It's yours now. Mara shook her head. I can't just stay here and you don't have a choice. His voice didn't rise, but it hardened. Someone wants you, Mara. Someone with resources. Someone who knows your routines, your schedule, your weaknesses. They knew you'd be at the library tonight. They knew you'd walk home alone. And they were ready. The words settled over her like ice water. How do you know my name? Cassian didn't answer. How do you know my name? Mara repeated, louder this time. He held her gaze. I've known your name for 6 years. The room went very still. What? I've been watching you, Cassian said simply. Not the way they have. Not as a target, as a responsibility. Mara felt like she was falling again, just like she had on the sidewalk. You're insane. I'm careful. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Your mother came to me before she died. She asked me for help. She was desperate. The cancer treatment was bankrupting her. She had no insurance, no savings, and a daughter she didn't want to leave alone in the world, so she made a deal. My mother would never... She did. Cassian's voice was flat. I paid for her treatment. Every surgery. Every round of chemo. Every hospital bill. In exchange, she asked me to look after you if anything ever happened, if you were ever in danger. Mara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her mother had died 3 years ago. 3 years, and she'd never known, never suspected. You're lying, she whispered. I don't lie. Then prove it. Cassian reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. Mara's hand shook as she opened it. The handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. Cassian, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Please keep your promise. She doesn't know about you, and she can't ever know unless she needs to. But if she's in danger, if someone comes for her, please don't let her face it alone. She's stronger than she thinks, but she doesn't believe that yet. Thank you for giving me time with her. Thank you for letting me say goodbye. Margaret Ellaway. Mara's vision blurred. She folded the letter carefully, mechanically, and set it on the table. Then she stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below her, lights glittering like broken glass. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and tried to remember how to breathe. Behind her, Cassian said nothing. She never told me, Mara said finally. Her voice was barely a whisper. She never told me she was that scared. She didn't want you to know. Because she thought I was weak. Because she thought you were worth protecting. Mara closed her eyes. What do you want from me? Nothing. Everyone wants something. I want you alive, Cassian said. That's all. Mara turned to face him. And if I don't want your protection? Then you'll die. He said it without emotion, like he was commenting on the weather. Those men won't stop. Whoever hired them won't stop. And you don't have the resources to fight them alone. So my options are stay here and become your prisoner, or leave and get killed. Those aren't your only options, Cassian said. But they're the only ones available tonight. Mara wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything but accept that this was her life now. But she was too tired, too scared. And some small, traitorous part of her brain whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Fine, she said. I'll stay. For tonight. Cassian nodded. Someone will show you to a room. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we figure out who wants you dead. The room Cassian's housekeeper led her to was bigger than Mara's entire apartment. King-sized bed. Ensuite bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. A walk-in closet with clothes in her size that she absolutely was not going to think about right now. She locked the door, even though she knew it was pointless. If Cassian wanted in, a lock wouldn't stop him. But it made her feel better, gave her the illusion of control. She didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall and tried to make sense of the past 3 hours. Her mother, the men in the street, Cassian Vale, the letter. None of it fit together. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces from 3 different boxes. Around 4 in the morning, her phone, her real phone, which someone had apparently found and charged, buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Elena. "Where are you? Are you okay?" I tried calling, but it went to voicemail. Mara stared at the screen. What was she supposed to say? "I'm fine. Just hiding in a Mafia boss's mansion because apparently my dead mother made a deal with him 6 years ago, and now people are trying to kidnap me." She typed back, "I'm okay. Long story. I'll explain tomorrow. How's your mom?" The reply came fast. "Surgery went well. She's stable. But Mara, where are you?" Mara hesitated, then, "Somewhere safe. I promise I'll call you tomorrow." She turned the phone off before Elena could respond. The morning came too fast. Mara woke to a knock on the door and a woman's voice saying breakfast was ready. She got dressed in the same clothes from yesterday. She wasn't touching the mystery wardrobe, and made her way downstairs. Cassian was already at the table, reading a newspaper like this was a normal Tuesday morning. He glanced up when she entered. "Sleep well?" "No." "Expected." He folded the paper and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Mara sat. A plate appeared in front of her. Eggs, toast, fruit, coffee that smelled better than anything she'd ever made in her own kitchen. "I need to go to work," she said. "No." "I have a job, Cassian. I can't just—" "You called in sick." He said it casually, like it was already done. "Your supervisor was very understanding." Mara's jaw tightened. "You had no right." "I had every right. You're not safe at the library. You're not safe anywhere public until I know who's after you." "So what? I'm just supposed to hide here forever?" "No, just until I deal with the problem." "And how long will that take?" Cassian took a sip of coffee. "As long as it takes." Mara wanted to throw something. Instead, she stabbed a piece of melon with her fork and chewed it aggressively. "I upgraded the security at your apartment," Cassian said. "New locks, cameras, alarms. You're not going back there. But if anyone tries to break in, I'll know." "Great, wonderful. My landlord's going to love that." "Your landlord already signed off on it." "How did you—" Mara stopped. Of course he did. Cassian Vale didn't ask permission. He just acted. "I also took care of the hospital bills," Cassian continued. "Elena's mother, the surgery, the recovery. All of it." Mara froze. "Why would you do that?" "Because you were worried about it. That's not a reason." "It's reason enough." There was something almost vulnerable in the way he said it, like he wasn't used to explaining himself. Like he didn't know how. Mara set her fork down. "I don't understand you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because you're asking me to trust you, and I don't even know who you are." Cassian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm the man your mother trusted when she had no one else. I'm the man who kept his promise, and I'm the man who's going to keep you alive, whether you like it or not." That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. Before Mara could respond, the door to the dining room opened. A man stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had lost a few too many fights. He nodded at Cassian. "We found something," he said. Cassian stood. "Show me." Mara started to stand too, but Cassian held up a hand. "Stay here." "Like hell." He turned to face her fully. "This isn't a negotiation, Mara." "You're right. It's not. Because I'm coming with you, whether you like it or not." She crossed her arms. "You said someone's after me. I deserve to know why." Cassian studied her for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he nodded. "Fine. But you stay close and you don't speak unless I tell you to." "Deal." Paris. The room they led her to was in the basement. It looked like something out of a spy movie. Monitors lining the walls, keyboards, servers humming in the corner. The man from earlier, Cassian introduced him as Marcus, pulled up a file on one of the screens. "This is surveillance footage from the library 3 weeks ago." Marcus clicked a key. The screen showed the main entrance, people coming and going, nothing unusual. Then Marcus zoomed in on a figure standing across the street. A man in a gray hoodie. He wasn't looking at the library. He was looking at the side entrance, the one Mara used. He was there every Tuesday for a month, Marcus said. Same spot, same time, always watching the side door. Mara's stomach dropped. I never noticed him. He didn't want you to, Cassian said. He nodded at Marcus. Keep going. Marcus pulled up another file. We traced his movements. He's connected to a guy named Oren Marchetti. The name clearly meant something to Cassian because his entire body went rigid. You're sure, Cassian said. Positive. Who's Oren Marchetti? Mara asked. Cassian turned to her. Someone who wants me dead. And apparently he's decided the best way to hurt me is through you. Mara felt cold. But I don't even know you. I didn't until last night. He doesn't know that. He just knows your mother came to me. He knows I've been watching you. And he knows that if he takes you, I'll come for you. So this is about you, Mara said slowly. I'm not the target. I'm the bait. Cassian didn't deny it. Mara felt something crack inside her chest. You should have let them take me. No. Yes, if this is about you, then nothing. Cassian stepped closer. Oren doesn't take hostages, Mara. He takes trophies. If he gotten his hands on you last night, you'd be dead by morning. The room went very quiet. So what now? Mara asked. Her voice sounded strange, distant. Now I make sure he doesn't get another chance. By keeping me locked up here? By ending this. Cassian's eyes were dark, dangerous. Oren Marchetti has been a problem for a long time. He just made it personal. Mara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was insane, but she could see it in his face, the cold, calculating rage that said he'd already made his decision. She was just a piece on the board now, and Cassian Vale was playing to win. That night, a delivery arrived at the mansion, a single black box tied with a red ribbon. Cassian opened it in front of Mara. Inside was a bouquet of black roses and a card. Beautiful stories deserve beautiful endings. Mara read it twice. Then she looked at Cassian. What does that mean? Cassian's jaw was tight. It means he knows you work at a library. It means he's been closer than we thought. It means he's watching me right now, Mara whispered. No. Cassian's voice was hard. It means he was watching you, past tense. Because from now on, you don't go anywhere without me. Mara wanted to protest, wanted to say she didn't need a bodyguard. But the roses sat between them like a threat. And she knew that Cassian was right. Somewhere out there, Oren Marchetti was waiting, and he wasn't going to stop until he got what he wanted, or until Cassian stopped him first. The black roses sat on Cassian's desk for 3 days, like a dare neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Mara found herself staring at them every time she walked past his office, their petals perfectly preserved, not a single one wilting. Something about that felt wrong. Flowers were supposed to die. These looked like they'd been dipped in something toxic to keep them frozen in time. On the 4th morning, Cassian had them removed without explanation. Mara watched through the doorway as Marcus carried the box out, his face carefully blank. She wanted to ask where they were going, what Cassian planned to do with them, but she'd learned over the past 72 hours that questions didn't always get answers in this house. Sometimes silence was the only currency that mattered. She was still wearing borrowed clothes. The closet in her room had been stocked with things in her exact size, jeans that fit her hips, sweaters that didn't pull across her shoulders, boots that didn't pinch. It should have felt like kindness. Instead, it felt like surveillance. Someone had measured her, studied her, known her body well enough to guess what would fit. Cassian, probably. Or someone he'd hired. Either way, it made her skin crawl. Elena had called 6 times. Mara had answered twice, both times with Cassian standing close enough to hear every word. The conversations had been stilted, awkward, full of half-truths that tasted like ash in her mouth. I'm staying with a friend, Mara had said during the second call. What friend? You don't have friends besides me. Elena's voice had been sharp with worry. Someone from college. You don't know her. Mara, what the hell is going on? Nothing, I'm fine. I just needed to get away for a few days. Because of my mom? Because I'm so sorry I called you that night. I didn't mean to. No, God, no. Elena, your mom is fine. I'm glad you called. This isn't about that. Then what is it about? Mara had looked at Cassian. He'd been watching her with that unreadable expression he wore like armor. She'd wanted to scream the truth into the phone. Wanted to tell Elena everything. The men in the street, the mansion, the roses. The fact that her dead mother had made a deal with a man who controlled half of Chicago's underworld. Instead, she'd said, "I just need some space. I'll call you soon. I promise." Elena had hung up without saying goodbye. Now it was Thursday afternoon, and Mara was sitting in Cassian's library. Because of course he had a library, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first editions and leather-bound classics that probably cost more than her car, trying to read a book she'd picked at random. The words kept blurring together. She'd been on the same page for 20 minutes. The door opened. Cassian walked in, followed by a woman Mara had never seen before. She was tall, elegant, wearing a charcoal suit that looked custom-made. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her eyes were the color of frozen smoke. "Mara," Cassian said. "This is Irina Volkov. She handles security consultations for my organization." Mara set the book down. "Meaning what exactly?" Irina smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Meaning I'm very good at finding people who don't want to be found. And right now, we need to find out who else might be looking for you." "I thought we already knew. Oren Marchetti." "Marchetti is the buyer," Irina said. She moved across the room with the fluid grace of someone who'd been trained to kill quietly. "But someone sold him the information. Someone close to you." Mara's chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" Cassian leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "The surveillance on you was too precise. The men who followed you knew your schedule down to the minute. They knew you'd be closing the library alone. They knew you'd walk instead of taking the bus. That level of detail doesn't come from watching you for a few weeks. It comes from someone who knows you." "That's insane. Nobody I know would think," Cassian interrupted. "Who have you told about your routines? Who knows where you work, when you work, how you get home?" Mara's mind raced. "Lots of people. My coworkers, my landlord, the guy at the coffee shop I go to every morning. This doesn't prove anything." "It narrows the field," Irina said. She pulled out a tablet and swiped through a series of photos. "These are people who've been in regular contact with you over the past 6 months. We've been monitoring communications, financial transactions, anything that might indicate unusual activity." She turned the tablet toward Mara. The first photo was of Mr. Chen, the owner of the dim sum place 2 blocks from her apartment. The second was her landlord, Mrs. Kowalski. The third was... Mara's stomach dropped. "Elena." "No," she said immediately. "Absolutely not. Elena would never—" "Her family is in debt," Irina said, her voice clinical. "Significant debt. Her father owes money to a loan shark connected to the Marchetti organization. 3 months ago, those debts were forgiven, completely wiped clean." "So what? Maybe he paid them off." "With what money? He's been unemployed for 2 years." Irina swiped to another screen. "The debt forgiveness happened 2 weeks after surveillance on you began." Mara stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You're saying Elena sold me out to pay off her dad's debts?" "I'm saying the timing is suspicious," Irina said. "Suspicious isn't proof." "No, but it's enough to ask questions." Cassian's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. "We need to talk to her." "You're not going anywhere near her." "Mara, I said no." Mara's hands were shaking again, that old, familiar tremor that meant she was about to lose control. "Elena is my best friend, the only person who gave a damn about me after my mother died. She sat with me through every panic attack, every sleepless night, every time I wanted to give up. She wouldn't do this." "People do terrible things when they're desperate," Cassian said. "She's not desperate, she's—" Mara stopped, because the truth was, she didn't know. Elena had been stressed lately, distracted. She'd canceled plans 3 times in the past month, always with vague excuses. And her mother's hospital bills, Mara had assumed Elena was drowning in them, but she'd never asked for help, never mentioned struggling. What if Cassian was right? What if Elena had— "No," Mara said again, but her voice was weaker now. "I want to talk to her myself." "That's not safe." "I don't care. If you're going to accuse her of this, I'm going to hear it from her mouth, not from surveillance photos and financial records." Cassian exchanged a look with Elena. Something passed between them, some silent communication Mara couldn't read. Fine, Cassian said finally. But I'm coming with you. And if anything feels wrong, we leave. No arguments. Fine. And Mara? Cassian stepped closer. If she did betray you, you need to be ready for that. Because finding out someone you love sold you out. It changes you. And not in ways you can undo. They met Elena at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far enough from Mara's apartment and the library that it felt neutral. Cassian had wanted to bring Marcus, but Mara had drawn the line. She'd agreed to let him sit 3 tables away, close enough to intervene if things went wrong, but far enough that Elena wouldn't feel ambushed. Elena arrived 10 minutes late, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She slid into the chair across from Mara and immediately grabbed her hands. "Oh my God, I've been so worried. Where have you been?" Mara pulled her hands back gently. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Elena's smile faltered. "Okay, what's wrong?" "Your dad's debts, the ones to the loan shark, they're gone, right?" Elena went very still. "How do you know about that?" "Answer the question." "Mara, what is this? Why are you—" "Elena, please." Elena looked down at her coffee cup. Her fingers were trembling slightly. "Yeah, they're gone. Someone paid them off a few months ago. We don't know who. Dad thought maybe it was a mistake, but the guy he owed said the debt was settled and to forget about it." "And you didn't think that was strange?" "Of course I thought it was strange, but we were drowning, Mara. Do you know what it's like to watch your dad drink himself to death because he can't pay back money he borrowed to keep your mom alive? I didn't ask questions. I just felt grateful." Mara's throat tightened. "Did anyone ask you to do anything in exchange?" "What? No, I told you. We don't even know who—" Elena stopped. Her eyes widened. "Wait, you think I had something to do with whatever's going on with you?" "I don't know what to think." "Mara, I would never—" Elena's voice cracked. "How could you even ask me that?" "Because someone's been watching me, someone who knows my schedule, my routines, everything about my life. And your dad's debts disappeared right when the surveillance started." Elena's face went pale, then red. "So what? You think I sold you out? For what, money? You think I'm the kind of person who would—" She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loud enough to make people turn. "Screw you, Mara. Screw you for even thinking that." "Elena, wait." But Elena was already walking toward the door. Mara started to follow, but Cassian was there suddenly, his hand on her arm. "Let her go," he said quietly. You need to think. Because either she's telling the truth, and we just burned your only friendship, or she's lying and she's better at it than we expected." Mara watched Elena disappear through the door, her chest aching with something that felt too much like grief. She wanted to believe Elena was innocent, wanted it so badly, it hurt. But doubt had already taken root, and doubt, once planted, was impossible to kill. That night, Mara couldn't sleep. She paced her room until her feet hurt, then moved to the window and stared out at the lake. The water was black under the moonless sky, and the city lights reflected on the surface like scattered stars. A knock on her door made her jump. "Come in," she said, expecting the housekeeper or maybe Marcus with another security update. It was Cassian. He was in a t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair slightly mussed, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. It was disarming, made him seem almost approachable. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Not really." He stepped into the room but left the door open. "I know this is hard, doubting someone you trust." "You don't know anything about it." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I know more than you think." Cassian moved to the window, standing a few feet away from her. "I had a brother once. Younger, smarter. I trusted him with everything. And then I found out he'd been skimming money from our accounts for 2 years to fund a gambling habit. When I confronted him, he tried to kill me." Mara turned to look at him. "What happened?" "I killed him first." Cassian said it without emotion, like he was reciting a grocery list. "It was him or me. I chose me." Jesus. The point is, betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people you die for. And when it does, you have 2 choices. Let it destroy you, or let it make you stronger. That's a terrible moral. It's the truth. Cassian finally looked at her. Elena might be innocent. I hope she is, for your sake. But if she's not, you need to be ready to let her go. And if I can't, then you'll die trying to save someone who already sold you. The words hung between them like a threat. Mara wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too hollowed out. Why did my mother trust you? She asked quietly. You're a criminal. You kill people. Why would she think you were the right person to protect her daughter? Cassian was quiet for a long moment. Because she knew I keep my promises, and because she knew that in this city, sometimes the only thing standing between survival and destruction is someone willing to get their hands dirty. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Get some sleep, Mara. Tomorrow's going to be worse. Tomorrow was worse. Mara woke to shouting, not loud, but sharp, voices cutting through the walls like knives. She pulled on a sweatshirt and followed the sound downstairs to Cassian's office. The door was open. Inside, Cassian and Marcus were standing over a laptop, their faces grim. Elena was there too, her expression colder than usual. What's going on? Mara asked from the doorway. All three of them turned. Cassian's jaw was tight. We have a problem. He turned the laptop toward her. The screen showed surveillance footage, grainy, black and white, time-stamped from last night. It was the coffee shop, the same one where Mara had met Elena. The footage showed Elena leaving, but instead of getting into her car, she walked 2 blocks down and got into a different vehicle, a black sedan with tinted windows. The camera angle shifted, zoomed in, and there, in the driver's seat, was a man Mara had never seen before. Lean, sharp-featured, with a scar running down the left side of his face. Who is that? Mara asked, even though part of her already knew. Oren Marchetti's lieutenant, Elena said. Name's Viktor Sokolov. He handles recruitment and intelligence. Mara felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. No, that doesn't mean maybe she didn't know who he was. Maybe he just offered her a ride. For 30 minutes? Marcus pulled up another clip. They sat in that car for half an hour, talking. Then she got out and went home. We have audio, Elena added. She pressed play. Elena's voice came through the speakers, tinny but clear. Told you, she doesn't trust me anymore. She thinks I sold her out. Victor's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. Then make her trust you again. How am I supposed to do that? Figure it out. You've gotten this far. Don't lose your nerve now. There was a pause. Then Elena said, What if I can't? What if she won't talk to me? Then you become useless. And useless people don't get to keep their families safe. The recording ended. Mara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room was spinning, and her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the desk to stay upright. Mara, Cassian started. Don't. Her voice sounded broken, destroyed. Just don't. She turned and walked out of the office, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Behind her, she heard Cassian say something to Marcus, but the words were lost in the roaring in her ears. Elena had betrayed her. Not just once, but over and over. Every conversation, every reassurance, every moment of supposed friendship, it had all been a lie. A performance designed to keep Mara compliant while Marchetti's people closed in. Mara made it to the bathroom before she threw up. Her whole body shook with the force of it, and when there was nothing left, she collapsed against the cool tile floor and finally let herself cry. She didn't leave the bathroom for an hour. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red and swollen and her throat felt raw. She found Cassian in the library, sitting in the same chair she'd occupied yesterday. He looked up when she entered but didn't speak. Mara sat down across from him. How long have you known? We suspected for 2 days. We confirmed it this morning. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to be sure. You wanted to control the narrative. Mara's voice was flat, dead. You wanted to make sure I saw the proof so I couldn't deny it. Cassian didn't argue. What happens now? Mara asked. That depends on you. What's that supposed to mean? It means you have a choice. Cassian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Elena betrayed you, but she did it to protect her family. Victor threatened them, used them as leverage. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it. So what? I'm supposed to forgive her? No, but you could give her a chance to make it right. Mara laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. How? By using her to feed false information back to Marchetti? By turning her into a double agent? Yes. The word landed like a punch. Mara stared at him. You're serious? Completely. Elena has access to Victor. She can feed him whatever we want. Lead Marchetti into a trap. End this before anyone else gets hurt. And if she refuses? Cassian's expression darkened. Then she becomes a liability. And liabilities don't survive in my world. You'd kill her. I'd remove the threat, however necessary. Mara stood up. Her hands were fists at her sides. You're insane. Elena made a mistake, a horrible, unforgivable mistake. But she's not a monster. She's just what? Scared? Desperate? Cassian stood too, and suddenly the space between them felt dangerous. So was everyone who ever betrayed someone they loved? Fear doesn't make betrayal acceptable, Mara. It just makes it easier to justify. She's my best friend. She was your best friend. Now she's the person who handed you to your enemies on a silver platter. The words hit like a slap. Mara wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because he was right. Elena had chosen her family over Mara, had chosen survival over loyalty, and that choice had consequences. What do you want me to do? Mara asked quietly. I want you to decide if you can live with what comes next, because once we move on Elena, there's no going back. Either she helps us or she dies. And you need to be okay with both possibilities. Mara closed her eyes. She thought about the Elena she'd known, the girl who'd brought her coffee during late-night study sessions in college, who'd held her while she sobbed after her mother's funeral, who'd made her laugh when laughter felt impossible. And then she thought about the Elena in that car, promising to manipulate her, to lie to her, to keep feeding information to the men who wanted her dead. When she opened her eyes, Cassian was watching her with something that might have been sympathy. Set up a meeting, Mara said. Her voice was steady now, cold. I'll talk to her. But if she doesn't agree to help, I walk away. And whatever you do after that is your business, not mine. Cassian nodded slowly. Okay. One more thing. If she does help us, and we take down Marchetti, I want her family protected. Real protection. Not threats. Not leverage. Actual safety. Done. I mean it, Cassian. If we're going to use her, we owe her that much. I said done, Mara. I keep my promises. You should know that by now. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon in a park near Elena's apartment. Neutral ground. Public enough that Victor's people wouldn't try anything. Private enough for a real conversation. Cassian wanted to come, but Mara refused. This was between her and Elena. No guards, no surveillance, just two people who used to be friends, trying to figure out if anything was left worth saving. Elena was already there when Mara arrived, sitting on a bench near the pond. She looked small, fragile, like a strong wind might blow her away. Mara sat down beside her, leaving space between them. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Elena said, I'm sorry. I know. I didn't want to. I swear, Mara, I didn't want to. But you did anyway. Elena's breath hitched. They said they'd kill my mom, my dad, my little brother. They said if I didn't give them information, they'd make it look like an accident, and I believed them. So you gave them me instead. I thought, Elena's voice broke. I thought they just wanted to know where you were. I didn't know they were going to try to take you. I swear, I didn't know. Mara finally looked at her. Elena's face was streaked with tears, her eyes red and swollen. She looked destroyed. You could have told me, Mara said. You could have warned me. I was scared. So was I. Every night for the past week I've been terrified, and the whole time my best friend was the reason why. Elena covered her face with her hands. I know, and I hate myself for it. If I could go back, if I could change it, but you can't. Mara's voice was hard. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. Are you going to... Elena couldn't finish the sentence. That depends on you. Elena lowered her hands. What do you mean? You can fix this? Not completely, but enough. You can help us take down Marchetti, feed Victor false information, lead them into a trap. Elena's eyes widened. Mara, I can't. If they find out They won't. Cassian Vale is very good at making sure his plans work. Cassian Vale. Elena said the name like a curse. So that's who you've been with. Jesus, Mara. Do you know what he is? What he does? I know exactly who he is. And right now, he's the only reason I'm still alive. He's using you. No, he's protecting me. There's a difference. Elena shook her head. You don't understand what you're getting into. These people, they don't just kill you. They destroy everything you love first. Your family, your friends, everything. Like you destroyed me? The words hung in the air like a blade. Elena flinched. I'm sorry, she whispered again. I know, but sorry doesn't fix this. Action does. Mara stood up. You have 48 hours to decide. Either you help us or you disappear. Take your family and run as far as you can, because when Cassian moves on Marchetti, anyone connected to them becomes a target, and I won't be able to protect you. Mara, please. 48 hours, Elena. That's all you get. Mara walked away before Elena could respond. She made it halfway across the park before her knees gave out, and she had to grab a tree to stay upright. Her whole body was shaking, and tears were streaming down her face, and she hated herself for still caring, for still wanting to believe that somewhere under all the lies, the girl she'd loved was still there. But wanting didn't change reality, and reality was cold, and sharp, and unforgiving. Elena called 36 hours later. Her voice was hollow when Mara answered. I'll do it, she said. I'll help you. Mara closed her eyes. Okay, but I need your promise. You promise my family stays safe. Cassian already agreed. I need to hear it from you. Mara swallowed hard. I promise. Your family will be protected, no matter what happens. There was a long pause. Then Elena said, I really am sorry, Mara. I know that doesn't matter anymore, but I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. I know. Do you think... Elena's voice cracked. Do you think we'll ever be okay again? After this? Mara thought about it. Thought about all the years of friendship, all the memories, all the trust that had been shattered in a single moment. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe, but not for a long time. Okay. Elena sounded like she was crying. Okay, I understand. Victor's going to contact you soon. When he does, tell him I've started trusting you again. Tell him I'm staying at Cassian's mansion, and I've been asking questions about his business. Make it believable. And then what? Then Cassian will tell you what to do next. Mara? Yeah? Thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. Mara hung up without responding, because the truth was, she wasn't giving Elena a chance to make things right. She was giving her a chance to survive, and in Cassian's world, that was the closest thing to mercy anyone ever got. That night, Cassian found Mara in the library again. She was curled up in one of the oversized chairs, staring at a book she wasn't reading. Elena agreed, Mara said without looking up. I know, Marcus is already setting up the framework. How long until we move? A week, maybe less. Cassian sat down across from her. How are you holding up? I'm fine. You're not fine. Mara finally looked at him. What do you want me to say, Cassian? That I'm devastated? That finding out my best friend betrayed me has destroyed every ounce of trust I had left in the world? Because yeah, that's exactly what happened. But sitting here crying about it won't change anything, so I'm choosing to be fine instead. That's not healthy. Neither is your entire existence, but you seem to manage. Cassian's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair point. They sat in silence for a while. Then Cassian said, Your mother asked me to protect you, but she also asked me to make sure you stayed yourself, that you didn't become someone you'd hate. Why are you telling me this? Because I see what's happening to you. You're hardening, building walls, and I understand why, but I need you to know you don't have to become like me to survive this. You can stay soft and still be strong. Mara's throat tightened. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about not feeling pain, Mara. It's about feeling it and choosing to keep going anyway. Cassian stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start planning. He was almost to the door when Mara said, Cassian? He turned. Did you mean what you said about your brother? Every word. Do you regret it? Cassian was quiet for a long moment. I regret that it had to happen. but I don't regret surviving. Is that what this is about? Survival? Always. Cassian's eyes were dark, haunted. In my world, the only thing that matters is making it to tomorrow. Everything else is just noise. Then he was gone, and Mara was alone again with her thoughts and a book she still couldn't read. Outside, the city glittered like broken glass under a moonless sky, and somewhere in that darkness, Oren Marchetti was waiting, but so was Cassian Vale. And when they finally collided, Mara knew the impact would destroy everything in its path, including, possibly, her. The plan was supposed to be simple. Elena would meet Victor in 3 days, feed him a location where Cassian supposedly stored financial records, and Marchetti's people would walk straight into a trap. Cassian's men would be waiting, clean, surgical, over before anyone knew what hit them. That was the plan. But plans required trust, and Mara was learning that trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. She spent the next 2 days watching Cassian orchestrate the operation like a conductor leading an orchestra. Marcus and Irina moved through the mansion with military precision, their phones constantly buzzing with updates. Blueprints covered the dining room table. Weapons appeared and disappeared in black duffel bags. The whole house hummed with a tension that made Mara's skin crawl. Cassian barely slept. She knew because she barely slept either, and every time she wandered downstairs at 2 or 3 in the morning, she'd find him in his office, staring at maps or talking in low voices with people whose faces she never saw. On the second night, she made the mistake of asking if she could help. Cassian had looked at her like she'd suggested jumping off the roof. No. I'm not useless. I didn't say you were. But this isn't your world, Mara. You don't know how to move in it without getting yourself killed. Then teach me. Why? The question caught her off guard. She'd expected resistance, not curiosity. Because I'm tired of being helpless, she said. Because I want to understand what I'm part of. And because if this goes wrong, I need to know how to survive it. Cassian had studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he'd said, "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Don't be late." But 6 a.m. came too fast. Mara dragged herself out of bed and found Cassian waiting in what could only be described as a home gym that rivaled most professional facilities. He was already dressed in athletic gear, looking annoyingly awake. "Ever handled a gun?" he asked without preamble. "No." "Good. Means I don't have to undo bad habits." He pulled a handgun from a locked cabinet and checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. First rule: a gun is always loaded until you personally verify it's not. Second rule: never point it at anything you don't intend to destroy. Third rule: if you pull it, you better be ready to use it. He handed it to her. The weight surprised her, heavier than she'd expected, cold and solid in her palm. "It's not loaded," Cassian said, "but treat it like it is." For the next hour, he walked her through the basics: stance, grip, sight alignment, how to control her breathing, how to squeeze the trigger instead of pulling it. His voice was patient but firm, and when she made mistakes, which was often, he corrected her without judgment. "You're flinching," he said when she tried to dry fire for the 10th time. "Anticipating the recoil. Stop thinking about what's going to happen and focus on what's happening now." Easy for you to say. No, it's not. It's a skill like anything else. You practice until your body remembers even when your brain forgets. He moved behind her, adjusting her shoulders. His hands were warm through her t-shirt. "Try again." She did. This time the imaginary shot felt cleaner, more controlled. "Better," Cassian said. "But you're still holding your breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow and steady." They moved on to hand-to-hand basics after that. How to break a grip. Where to strike if someone grabbed her from behind. How to use her weight as leverage, even against someone bigger and stronger. "The goal isn't to win a fight," Cassian explained, demonstrating a move that would have shattered someone's kneecap if he'd followed through. "The goal is to create an opening so you can run. Pride doesn't matter. Survival does." Mara absorbed everything like a sponge, her muscles burning and her mind racing. This was a language she'd never learned, the vocabulary of violence, the grammar of staying alive. And Cassian was fluent in ways that should have terrified her, but somehow didn't. When they finally stopped, she was drenched in sweat and shaking from exertion. "You did good," Cassian said, tossing her a water bottle. "Better than I expected." Was that a compliment? It was an observation, but there was something almost warm in his expression. Almost. Why are you doing this? Mara asked. Teaching me, I mean. You could have just said no. Cassian took a drink from his own bottle, then looked at her. Because your mother asked me to protect you. And protection isn't just about keeping you behind walls. It's about making sure you can protect yourself when I'm not there. You think you're not going to be there? I think this world is unpredictable, and I think you deserve to have options. It was the most honest thing he'd said to her since they'd met. Mara wanted to push further, to ask what he was really afraid of. But the moment passed. Cassian's phone buzzed, and just like that, the walls went back up. Marcus needs me, he said, already moving toward the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. Tomorrow came with this kind of cold rain that Chicago specialized in, the type that soaked through your coat and settled into your bones. Mara spent most of the morning pacing the library, unable to focus on anything. Elena was supposed to meet Victor at 2 p.m. By 3, Marchetti's people would be moving on the fake location. By 4, it would all be over. That was the plan. But something felt wrong. Mara couldn't articulate what exactly. Just a gnawing sensation in her gut that wouldn't go away no matter how many times she told herself everything was under control. At 1:30, Cassian found her. Elena's in position. Victor just confirmed the meeting. And you're sure she won't? She won't. Cassian's voice was firm. Irina's been monitoring her communications. Nothing suspicious. Elena's scared, but she's following the script. Mara nodded, but the unease didn't fade. You should stay here, Cassian said. Marcus will be with you. I'm going to oversee the operation personally. I want to come. No. Cassian, this isn't a debate, Mara. You're not trained for this. If something goes wrong, you'll be a liability. The word stung more than it should have. I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. But there's a difference between knowing how to throw a punch and being ready for a gunfight. He stepped closer, his expression softening just slightly. I need you here. Safe. That's non-negotiable. Before Mara could argue further, his phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then his entire body went rigid. Say that again, he said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Mara couldn't hear the response, but she watched Cassian's face shift from controlled calm to barely contained fury in the span of 3 seconds. How long ago? He demanded. Then, lock down the house, nobody in or out. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Mara. We have a problem. The problem was that Elena had never shown up to meet Victor. She'd left her apartment at the right time, gotten into her car, and driven toward the designated meeting spot. But somewhere between her place and the coffee shop where Victor was waiting, she'd disappeared. Her car was found abandoned on a side street, doors unlocked, keys still in the ignition. Could she have run? Marcus asked. They were gathered in Cassian's office. Him, Mara, Irina, and 3 other men whose names Mara didn't know. Changed her mind at the last second? Her phone's still active, Irina said, fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. GPS shows it moving, currently heading south on the Dan Ryan. That's toward Marchetti's territory, one of the unnamed men said. Cassian's jaw was tight enough to shatter. They took her. How? Mara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You said you were monitoring her. You said she was safe. I said we were monitoring her communications. That doesn't mean we had eyes on her every second. Cassian turned to Irina. Pull up the street cameras. Find out what happened. It took Irina less than 5 minutes. The footage showed Elena's car pulling over to the curb. A black van pulled up behind her. 3 men got out. One of them opened Elena's driver's side door, and she got out without struggling, like she'd been expecting them, like she'd wanted them to find her. No, Mara said. No, that's not... She wouldn't... Keep watching, Cassian said, his voice like ice. The footage continued. Elena walked to the van, climbed in. No one forced her. No one even touched her. She went willingly. And then, just before the van door closed, she looked directly at the camera, straight into the lens, and smiled. The room went very quiet. She played us, Marcus said finally. No, Mara's voice was too loud in the silence. There has to be another explanation. Maybe they threatened her. Maybe nothing. Cassian's eyes were flat, empty. She's been working with them the whole time. The meeting with you in the park, the phone call, all of it was theater. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He turned the laptop toward her. Irina, show her. Irina pulled up a new window. Bank records. Transactions going back 3 months. Payments into an account under Elena's name. Not large amounts, nothing that would trigger alarms, but consistent. Regular deposits every week. They've been paying her, Irina said. Not for information. For you. Mara felt like someone had punched her in the chest. What? The surveillance. The meeting at the coffee shop. Even agreeing to help us. It was all designed to get you exactly where you are right now. Cassian's voice was clinical, detached. In my house. Close to me. Trusting me. She gave Marchetti everything he needed to plan his next move. Which is what? You. Cassian looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something that might have been regret in his eyes. You were never the target, Mara. You were the bait. Marchetti doesn't want you dead. He wants me distracted, off balance, and there's no better way to make that happen than to put someone I've promised to protect in danger. The words landed like blows, each one worse than the last. So Elena, Mara couldn't finish the sentence, was never your friend, Cassian said quietly. At least not for the past 6 months. I don't know when Marchetti got to her. Maybe after her dad's debts? Maybe before. But everything she's done since then has been calculated to bring us to this moment. Mara's knees gave out. She grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright, her vision swimming. I'm going to be sick. She made it to the bathroom before she vomited. Her whole body shook with it, and when there was nothing left, she collapsed against the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. Elena had betrayed her. Not once, but completely. Absolutely. Every moment of their friendship had been a lie. Every conversation, every confidence, every late-night phone call where Mara had poured out her heart, all of it had been weaponized, turned into ammunition for people who wanted to destroy her. There was a knock on the door. Mara? Cassian's voice. We need to talk. She didn't answer. I know you're hurting, but we don't have time for that right now. Marchetti's going to move soon, and we need to be ready. Ready for what? Mara's voice was raw, broken. For war. Dad. Cassian laid it out for her in his office, with the kind of brutal efficiency that left no room for hope. Marchetti had been planning this for months, maybe longer. The goal was simple: force Cassian into a position where he had to choose between protecting Mara and protecting his organization. No matter which choice he made, he'd lose. If Cassian focused on keeping Mara safe, Marchetti would move on his territory, his businesses, his people. If Cassian focused on defending his empire, Marchetti would take Mara. So what are you going to do? Mara asked. Cassian looked at her like the answer should be obvious. Both. You can't do both. Watch me. He turned to Marcus. Pull everyone in. I want full protection details on all our primary assets, double the security at the warehouses, and get Victor's location. If Elena's with Marchetti, Victor will know where. And if we can't find him, Marcus asked, then we make him come to us. Cassian's expression was carved from stone. Put the word out. I'm offering a trade. Mara for Elena. What? Mara stood up so fast her chair fell over. No, absolutely not. It's the only play we have. It's a suicide play. You said it yourself. Marchetti wants me as bait. If you hand me over, you lose everything. I'm not going to hand you over, Cassian said. I'm going to make him think I am. And when he takes the bait, we end this. By doing what? By killing everyone in that room. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Mara stared at him, searching for any sign that he was bluffing. But Cassian's eyes were empty of everything except cold calculation. This is insane, she said. This is survival. You'll die. Maybe, Cassian shrugged. But if I do, I'll make sure Marchetti goes first. Mara wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to shake him until that terrifying calm cracked, and he admitted he was scared too. But she knew it wouldn't work. Cassian Vale didn't do scared, he did strategic, and right now his strategy involved using her as bait in a trap that would probably get them both killed. There has to be another way, she said. There isn't. Then we run. Take your money and disappear. Start over somewhere he can't find us. He'd find us. Marchetti doesn't let go. He doesn't forgive, and he doesn't stop. Cassian moved closer, and his voice dropped. Your mother asked me to protect you. This is how I do that. By making sure the threat doesn't exist anymore. By sacrificing yourself, if necessary. That's not protection. That's martyrdom. Sometimes they're the same thing. Mara's hands curled into fists. I won't let you. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them until she could feel the heat coming off his body. I choose to fight, not hide behind you while you play hero, fight alongside you, because if we're going down together. Cassian stared at her. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Tell her she was being stupid. Send her away with Marcus to some safe house where she couldn't interfere. Instead he said, okay, yeah. The call came 6 hours later. Victor's voice, smooth and pleasant, like they were old friends catching up. Cassian, I believe you have something that belongs to us. And I believe you have something that belongs to me, Cassian replied. He had the phone on speaker, and everyone in the room could hear. The girl? She was never yours. She was always ours. You just didn't know it yet. Then why do you want her back? There was a pause. Then Victor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. We don't. But Oren thought it might be entertaining to watch you try to trade for her. You're sentimental, Cassian. It's your greatest weakness. Name your terms. Mara Ellaway, alive, unharmed, delivered to the old meatpacking plant on Ashland by midnight tonight. Come alone. If we see any of your people, Elena dies. Then Mara. Then we start working our way through everyone you've ever cared about. And if I comply, then maybe we let you live long enough to watch Chicago burn. The line went dead. Marcus swore. Irina's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. The other men in the room looked at Cassian, waiting for orders. Cassian set the phone down carefully. He's lying. About which part? Mara asked. All of it. He's not going to let anyone live. This is an execution, not a trade. Cassian looked at Marcus. How many men can we get to the plant without being seen? Depends on the approach. If we go in through the storm drains, maybe 20, but we'd be blind down there. No comms, no coordination. Then we don't go in through the drains. Cassian pulled up a map on his laptop. We go in through the roof. Irina, I need thermal imaging of the building. I want to know how many hostiles we're dealing with and where they're positioned. That'll take time we don't have, Irina said. Then work faster. For the next 4 hours, Cassian's mansion transformed into a war room. Plans were drawn and discarded. Weapons were distributed. Body armor appeared from places Mara didn't want to think about. She watched it all unfold with a strange sense of detachment, like she was watching a movie instead of living it. At some point, Cassian pulled her aside. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I can still send you somewhere safe. Marcus knows places even Marchetti can't reach. I'm not running. I said I'm not running. She met his eyes. Elena might have betrayed me, but she's still in there. Still a hostage. And I'm not leaving her to die alone, no matter what she's done. She made her choice. So did I. Mara's voice was steady, certain. I'm coming with you, and if you try to stop me, I'll find another way to get there. Cassian looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he reached into a drawer and pulled out a small handgun, the same model they'd practiced with that morning. This one's loaded, he said, handing it to her. Safety's here. Magazine release is here. You remember everything I taught you? Yes. Good. Because if things go wrong, when things go wrong, you use this. You aim for center mass, and you don't stop pulling the trigger until the threat is down. Understand? Mara took the gun. It felt heavier than before. More real. I understand, she said. They left for the meatpacking plant at 11. Cassian drove, with Mara in the passenger seat and Marcus in the back. 3 more cars followed at a distance, each carrying men whose faces were hard and whose eyes were colder. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the city lights in fractured patterns. Mara watched the buildings slide past and tried not to think about what was coming. Tried not to imagine Elena's face when she realized Mara had come for her anyway. Tried not to picture all the ways this could end with everyone dead. "You okay?" Cassian asked without looking at her. "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. It's when you stop being afraid that you make mistakes. Is that what happened to your brother? He stopped being afraid?" Cassian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "My brother thought he was invincible. He thought loyalty was weakness, and that the only person worth protecting was himself. That's what got him killed." "Do you miss him?" "Every day." The admission seemed to cost him something. "But I'd kill him again if I had to. Some betrayals can't be forgiven." They drove the rest of the way in silence. The meatpacking plant loomed against the night sky like a corpse, all broken windows and rusted metal and shadows that moved when they shouldn't. Cassian parked 2 blocks away and killed the engine. "Last chance to change your mind," he said to Mara. She checked the gun tucked into her waistband. "Let's go." They moved through the darkness like ghosts. Cassian had insisted Mara wear body armor under her jacket, and now she understood why. It made her feel less vulnerable, even though she knew it wouldn't stop everything. Marcus and his team split off to approach from the north while Cassian led Mara toward the main entrance. The doors were unlocked. That should have been the first warning. Inside the plant was a maze of rusted machinery and hanging chains that creaked in the wind. The smell was overwhelming, old blood and decay and something chemical that burned the back of Mara's throat. Cassian moved ahead of her, gun drawn, his movements precise and controlled. They found Elena in the center of the main floor, tied to a chair under a single hanging bulb. Her face was bruised, her lips split, but she was alive. Her eyes widened when she saw Mara. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came." Mara started forward, but Cassian's arm shot out, stopping her. "It's a trap," he said. And then the lights came on. Everywhere, all at once, blinding. Mara's hand flew to her eyes, and when her vision cleared, she saw them. Dozens of men, surrounding them on all sides, guns trained, faces masked, and in the center of it all, standing just behind Elena, was a man Mara had never seen before. Older, distinguished, with silver hair and eyes like shattered ice. "Cassian Vale," the man said, his voice carrying across the warehouse like a sermon. "I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time." "Marchetti," Cassian said. It wasn't a question. "In the flesh." Oren Marchetti stepped around Elena's chair, trailing one hand across her shoulders like she was a pet. "You've caused me quite a bit of trouble over the years. Took territory that was mine, killed men who were loyal to me, made me look weak in front of people whose respect I needed." "You were weak," Cassian said. "I just made it obvious." Marchetti smiled. It was the coldest thing Mara had ever seen. "And yet here you are, walking into my trap, bringing the girl I wanted delivered right to my door. Who's weak now?" Cassian didn't answer, but Mara saw his finger move to the trigger. "I wouldn't," Marchetti said pleasantly. "Your men on the roof? Already dead. Your backup in the storm drains? Cut off. And Marcus?" He gestured, and 2 of his men dragged something forward. It was Marcus. Beaten, bloodied, barely conscious. "We've been planning this for months," Marchetti continued. "Every move you made, we were 3 steps ahead. Every precaution you took, we'd already accounted for. You walked into this thinking you were the hunter, Cassian, but you were always the prey." Mara's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. This was it. They were going to die here. All of them. Cassian must have sensed her panic because he reached back and squeezed her hand once. Quick, reassuring. Then he let go. "You want to know why I came?" Cassian said, his voice carrying across the warehouse. "It wasn't to trade. It wasn't to negotiate. I came because I wanted to look you in the eye when I destroyed everything you've built." Marchetti laughed. "You're in no position to destroy anything, aren't I?" Cassian smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Mara had ever seen. "Irina, now!" For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the building exploded. Not literally, but close enough. The lights went out. Emergency systems screamed to life, and through the darkness came the sound of gunfire, rapid, methodical, coming from positions Mara couldn't see. Cassian grabbed her arm and pulled her down behind a piece of machinery just as bullets started tearing through the space where they'd been standing. She could hear men shouting, screaming, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. "Stay down," Cassian ordered. Then he was up, moving, returning fire with the kind of precision that suggested he'd done this 100 times before. Mara pressed herself against the cold metal and tried to remember how to breathe. The gun in her waistband felt useless. Her training felt useless. She was in the middle of a war zone, and all she could do was hide and pray she didn't die. Then she saw Elena, still tied to the chair, still in the center of the room. Men were using her as cover, hiding behind her while they fired at Cassian's hidden snipers. Without thinking, Mara moved. She stayed low, using the machinery as cover, her heart slamming against her ribs. Someone fired in her direction, and she heard the bullet ping off metal inches from her head, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She reached Elena just as another wave of gunfire erupted overhead. "Mara, what are you—" Elena's voice was hoarse, terrified. "Saving your stupid life." Mara pulled out the knife Cassian had given her and started cutting through the ropes. "Whether you deserve it or not, you need to leave. They'll kill you." "Yeah, well, that's been the plan all night." The ropes came free. Mara grabbed Elena's arm and hauled her up. "Can you run?" "I think so." "Then run." They made it 3 steps before Victor appeared out of the smoke like a demon. His face was split in a grin that showed too many teeth, and he had a gun trained directly at Mara's chest. "Going somewhere?" he asked. Mara's hand went to her waistband, to the gun. But she knew she'd never be fast enough. Victor knew it too. His grin widened. Then Elena stepped between them. "No," she said. Victor's expression shifted from amusement to confusion. "Get out of the way, Elena." "No." Elena's voice was stronger now. "I'm done. I'm done lying, done hurting people, done being your puppet." "You think you have a choice?" "I think I'm making one." Elena looked back at Mara, and for the first time in months her eyes were clear, honest. "I'm sorry for everything. I know you can't forgive me, but I need you to know, the girl who was your friend, she was real. Before all this, before they got to me. That girl loved you, and she's the one making this choice now." "Elena, don't," Mara started. "Marasha." But Elena was already moving. She lunged at Victor, grabbing for his gun. They struggled, twisted, and then the gun went off. Elena stumbled backward, her hand going to her stomach. Blood bloomed through her shirt like a dark flower. "No!" Mara caught her as she fell. "No, no, no, no!" "It's okay," Elena whispered. Her face was pale, too pale. "It's okay. You're safe. That's what matters. You're not dying, you're not—" But Elena's eyes were already glazing over. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, and Mara knew, she knew, there was nothing she could do. "I'm sorry," Elena said one more time. Then she was gone. Mara knelt there in the dark, covered in her best friend's blood, and something inside her shattered. Not broke. Shattered. Into pieces so small they could never be put back together. She looked up at Victor. He was staring at Elena's body with an expression that might have been regret. Mara pulled the gun from her waistband. She didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't do any of the things Cassian had taught her. She just aimed for center mass and pulled the trigger, again and again and again. Until the gun was empty and Victor was on the ground, and there was so much blood she couldn't tell whose was whose anymore. Someone was screaming. It took Mara a moment to realize it was her. Then Cassian was there, pulling her away, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to go, now. Elena is dead, and we will be too if we don't move." He dragged her toward an exit she hadn't seen. Behind them, the gunfire was dying down. Either Cassian's people had won, or Marchetti's had. Mara didn't know, didn't care. All she knew was that Elena was dead, and she'd killed a man, and nothing would ever be the same again. They burst out into the alley behind the plant just as sirens started wailing in the distance. Cassian pushed her toward a car, not the one they'd arrived in, something smaller and faster, and shoved her into the passenger seat. "Where's Marcus?" Mara asked. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Dead." Cassian's voice was flat. "They're all dead. Marchetti had 50 men in there, we had 20. The math was never going to work." He started the car and pulled out into the street, tires screeching. "Then why?" "Because I needed Marchetti to think he'd won. needed him to drop his guard long enough for Elena to get into his systems and shut everything down, his banks, his communications, his entire network. Cassian glanced at her. He's finished. Even if he survives tonight, he's got nothing left. And the cost was everyone we brought with us. Yes. That's strategic, Cassian finished. That's war, Mara. You sacrifice what you can afford to lose to protect what you can't. Mara looked down at her hands. They were covered in blood. Victor's blood. Elena's blood. She couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I killed him, she whispered. I know. I didn't even think about it. I know. Cassian's voice softened fractionally. First kill is always the hardest. But you did what you had to do. He would have killed you otherwise. Does it get easier? Cassian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, No. You just get better at living with it. They drove through the night while Chicago burned behind them. Police cars screamed past, heading toward the plant. Ambulances. Fire trucks. The whole city was about to descend on that warehouse and find a massacre that would make the news for weeks. And Mara sat in the passenger seat, covered in blood, her best friend's body cooling on a factory floor, and wondered if survival was really worth this price. Cassian must have sensed her thoughts because he reached over and took her hand. You're alive, he said quietly. That's all that matters right now. But Mara wasn't sure she agreed, because the person who'd walked into that plant, the quiet librarian who believed in second chances and the goodness of people, that person was dead. And whoever was sitting in this car, wearing her skin and carrying her memories, was someone else entirely. Someone who could pull a trigger without flinching. Someone who could watch a friend die and keep moving. Someone who understood, finally, that in Cassian's world, there were no good choices, only survival, and the things you had to become to achieve it. The safe house was in a part of Chicago Mara didn't recognize. Industrial buildings that looked abandoned but probably weren't. Streets with no names. The kind of neighborhood where questions got you killed. Cassian pulled the car into an underground garage and killed the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. Mara could still smell the gunpowder, still feel the weight of the gun in her hand, the recoil traveling up her arm with each shot. Still see Victor's face as he went down, surprise bleeding into nothing. We need to clean you up, Cassian said finally. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something that sounded almost like concern. Mara looked down at herself. Her clothes were ruined. Blood had soaked through her jeans, her jacket, even her shoes. Elena's blood. Victor's blood. Maybe others she didn't remember getting close enough to touch. I don't think I can move, she said. Cassian got out of the car and came around to her side. He opened the door and crouched down so they were eye level. You can. You will. Because if you shut down now, you won't come back from it. Maybe I don't want to come back. Too bad. He took her hand, the one that wasn't covered in blood, and pulled her gently to her feet. You made a choice tonight, Mara. You chose to fight. You chose to survive. Now you have to live with that choice. By pretending I'm fine? By accepting that you're not. Cassian kept hold of her hand as he led her toward a steel door. Fine is for people who've never had to kill someone. You're past that now. But you're still here, still breathing, and that counts for something. The safe house was surprisingly clean, sparse but functional, with furniture that looked military issue and windows covered in blackout curtains. Cassian led Mara to a bathroom that had a shower, towels, and a first aid kit that looked like it could handle a field amputation. Get cleaned up, he said. There's clothes in the closet. They'll be big on you, but they're better than what you're wearing. Mara nodded numbly. She waited until he left before she started stripping off her ruined clothes. Her hand shook so badly it took 3 tries to unbutton her jeans. When she finally got them off, she saw the blood had soaked through to her skin, leaving rust-colored stains that looked like bruises. The shower water ran red for a long time. Mara stood under the spray and watched Elena's blood swirl down the drain and tried to remember how to feel something other than numb. She scrubbed her skin until it was raw, but the blood kept finding places she'd missed, under her nails, behind her ears, in the creases of her knuckles. When she finally got out, her skin was pink and stinging, and she still didn't feel clean. She found the clothes Cassian had mentioned, sweatpants and a t-shirt that hung off her frame like a tent. They smelled like laundry detergent and something else, something masculine that might have been Cassian's cologne. She tried not to think about that too hard. When she emerged from the bathroom, she found Cassian in the kitchen, making coffee. He'd changed too, though she hadn't heard him move through the apartment. His hair was still wet, and there was a fresh bandage on his left arm that she hadn't noticed before. "You're hurt," she said. "Grazed. It's nothing." He poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across the counter to her. "Drink. The caffeine will help with the shock." Mara took the cup but didn't drink. "How many people died tonight?" Cassian was quiet for a moment. 23 of mine, maybe 40 of his. We won't know the final count until morning." 63 people. Give or take. "And you're okay with that?" "No." Cassian met her eyes. "But I'm okay with being alive. There's a difference." Mara set the cup down. Her hands were still shaking. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. Marchetti's network is collapsing as we speak. Elena made sure of that. By morning, every account he controls will be frozen. Every contact he has will know he's weak, and every territory he holds will be up for grabs." "So he's finished?" "Not yet." Cassian took a drink of his coffee. "Wounded animals are the most dangerous. He's going to lash out, try to hurt me any way he can before he goes down completely." "Meaning me. Meaning you." Mara's stomach twisted. "So I'm still in danger?" "Until he's dead, yes." Cassian set his cup down. "Which is why we're going to finish this. Tomorrow. Before he has a chance to regroup." "How?" "By giving him exactly what he wants." Fuck. The plan was insane. Mara said so 3 times, but Cassian didn't waver. "Marchetti wants revenge," he explained, spreading a map across the kitchen table. "He wants to hurt me, humiliate me, prove that I'm not untouchable. The only way he can do that now is by taking you, so we let him think he can. By using me as bait again. By using you as bait properly this time." Cassian tapped a location on the map, a building downtown near the river. "This is his last safe house, the only property Elena couldn't crack. He'll go to ground there to regroup." "And you want me to just walk in?" "I want you to make him think you're trying to escape me. Elena will plant evidence that you stole a car, emptied a bank account, and are planning to run. Marchetti's people will pick up on it. They're still monitoring police channels, still watching, and they'll intercept you before you can leave the city." "And then?" "Then they'll take you to Marchetti, and I'll be right behind them." Mara stared at him. "You're asking me to get kidnapped on purpose." "I'm asking you to trust me." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Cassian leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "I know you're scared. I know tonight broke something in you that might not heal, but this is the only way to end it. If we don't take him out now, he'll keep coming, forever. And eventually, he'll win." "What if you're wrong? What if he kills me before you get there?" "He won't." "How do you know?" "Because I've spent 6 years keeping my promise to your mother. I'm not going to break it now." Cassian's voice was hard, final. "You're going to survive this, Mara, even if I don't." The words hung between them like a confession. Mara wanted to argue, to find some other option that didn't involve her walking into the lion's den. But she knew Cassian was right. Running wouldn't work. Hiding wouldn't work. The only way out was through. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock. Rush hour. Lots of witnesses. Makes it harder for him to try anything too public." "And if something goes wrong?" Cassian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, a panic button, barely bigger than a quarter. "You press this, I'll know. No matter where you are, no matter what's happening, I'll find you." Mara took the device. It was warm from being in his pocket, and something about that small detail made her throat tighten. "You really think this will work?" "I think it's our best chance." Cassian straightened. "Get some sleep. You're going to need it." "I can't sleep." "Then lie down and pretend." His expression softened slightly. "You did good tonight, Mara. Better than most people would have. Your mother would be proud." "My mother would be horrified. Your mother made a deal with a man like me to keep you safe. She knew exactly what she was asking for." Cassian moved toward the door, then paused. "You're stronger than you think. You just haven't had a reason to find out until now." Then he was gone, and Mara was alone with her thoughts and a cold cup of coffee and the memory of Elena's eyes going dark. She didn't sleep. She lay on the narrow bed in the safe house's single bedroom and stared at the ceiling and counted her heartbeats until the sun came up. The The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Elena showed up around 10 with a laptop and started building Mara's false trail. Bank withdrawals, car rental reservations, airline tickets booked under a fake name. She worked in silence, her fingers flying across the keyboard with mechanical precision. Cassian spent the morning on the phone, his voice low and intense, as he coordinated with what was left of his organization. Mara caught fragments of conversations, discussions about territories, shipments, people whose loyalty needed to be confirmed. The machinery of his empire, grinding forward even as bodies were still being counted from the night before. Around noon, he found her in the kitchen, staring at a sandwich she'd made but couldn't bring herself to eat. "You need to eat," he said. "I know. But you can't." "No." Cassian sat down across from her. "When I killed my brother, I didn't eat for 3 days. Couldn't keep anything down. The guilt was eating me alive, even though I knew I'd made the right choice." "How did you get past it?" "I didn't. I just learned to carry it." He pushed the sandwich closer to her. "But you still need to eat, because guilt won't stop a bullet, and you need your strength for what's coming." Mara forced herself to take a bite. It tasted like sand, but she swallowed anyway. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Really? Don't tell me it's because of my mother. There has to be more to it than that." Cassian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "Your mother was the first person in a long time who looked at me and didn't see a monster. She saw someone who could help her, someone she could trust. And when she died, I promised myself I wouldn't let her daughter end up like everyone else I'd failed to protect." "Who did you fail?" "Too many people to count." His eyes were distant, haunted. "My brother. My father. A woman I loved once before I understood what love costs in this world. Every single one of them died because I wasn't strong enough, smart enough, ruthless enough to keep them safe." "That's not—" "Yes, it is." Cassian's voice was sharp. "Every death in my world is a failure, every betrayal, every loss, and I've had more than my share. But you—" He stopped, took a breath. "You were supposed to be different. You were supposed to be the one person I could actually save." Mara's chest ached. "I'm still here. For now." "Then let's make sure it stays that way." At 2:45, Mara climbed into a stolen Honda Civic with plates that matched the ones Elena had registered in the fake identity. The car was cold, the engine rough, and the panic button Cassian had given her felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. Cassian stood by the driver's side window, his face unreadable. "You remember the route? North on Ashland, east on Division. Take the exit toward O'Hare but merge onto the Kennedy instead. Make it look like I'm improvising." "Good. They'll pick you up somewhere between Division and the highway. When they do, don't fight. Let them take you. And if they hurt me, they won't. Not until they have you in front of Marchetti. He'll want to do that part himself." Cassian's jaw tightened. "I'll be there before he gets the chance." "You better be." "I will be." He reached through the window and gripped her shoulder. "You're going to be fine, Mara, I promise." "You've made a lot of promises, and I've kept everyone." He stepped back. "Go, and don't look back." Mara put the car in gear and pulled out onto the street. In the rearview mirror, she saw Cassian standing in the middle of the road, watching her disappear. Then she turned the corner, and he was gone. The drive felt surreal. Traffic was heavy, the afternoon sun cutting through the buildings in sharp golden slabs. Mara's hands were sweating on the steering wheel, and her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. Every car that pulled up behind her might be them. Every shadow might be the moment it all went wrong. She made it to Division before they showed up. It was a black SUV with tinted windows, exactly like the ones from that first night. It pulled up alongside her at a red light, then dropped back, following. Not subtle. They wanted her to know they were there. Mara's breath came faster. She gripped the steering wheel tighter and took the exit toward the Kennedy like Cassian had told her to. The SUV stayed with her, matching her speed, boxing her in. Then a second vehicle appeared, a sedan, dark blue, coming up fast on her right. It swerved into her lane, forcing her toward the shoulder. Mara's pulse spiked. She hit the brakes, but the sedan hit her anyway, a controlled tap that sent her spinning onto the shoulder. Her car lurched to a stop. Before she could reach for the panic button, both vehicles were there, men pouring out. 4 of them. 5. Their faces were covered, but their movements were professional, practiced. One of them yanked her door open and grabbed her arm. "Out! Now!" Mara didn't fight. She let them pull her from the car, let them zip-tie her wrists, let them shove her into the back of the SUV. The panic button was still in her pocket, but she didn't press it. Not yet. Cassian needed them to take her all the way to Marchetti. That was the plan. The SUV pulled back onto the highway. Through the tinted windows, Mara watched the city slide past and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Bang. They drove for 20 minutes before pulling into an underground parking garage beneath a building Mara didn't recognize. The men hauled her out of the SUV and marched her toward an elevator. No one spoke. The silence was worse than threats. The elevator rose smoothly, numbers ticking upward. 12 floors. 15. 20. When it finally stopped, the doors opened onto a hallway that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Marble floors, art on the walls, lighting that was warm and expensive. At the end of the hall was a set of double doors. The men pushed them open and shoved Mara inside. The room beyond was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, and the furniture looked like it cost more than Mara's childhood home. And sitting in a leather chair near the window, holding a glass of whiskey, was Orrin Marchetti. He looked different in daylight, older, tired, but his eyes were still sharp, still cold, and when he smiled at Mara, it was the smile of a man who'd already won. "Miss Ellaway," he said, setting his glass down. "How kind of you to join me." Mara didn't respond. Her wrists were still zip-tied, and the men who'd brought her were standing by the door, blocking any escape. Marchetti stood and walked toward her with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been afraid a day in his life. "I have to admit, I'm impressed. Most people in your position would be begging for their lives by now, but you're just standing there, quiet, watching." "What do you want?" Mara asked. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Revenge." Marchetti circled her slowly, like a shark. "Cassian Vale has been a thorn in my side for years. He's cost me money, territory, respect, and now he's cost me my entire network. Everything I've built, gone, because of him. So kill him, not me. Oh, I plan to kill him. But first, I want him to suffer. I want him to know what it feels like to lose something he can't replace." Marchetti stopped in front of her. "That's you, in case you were wondering. You're his weakness, his one soft spot in a life built on stone." "You're wrong. I'm nothing to him." "Really?" Marchetti pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. It was from last night, Mara and Cassian in the alley behind the meatpacking plant, Cassian's hand on her shoulder. His face turned toward hers with an expression that was almost tender. "He's protected you for 6 years, Marchetti continued, watched over you, intervened when those men came for you, walked into a trap last night knowing he'd lose people, all to keep you safe. That's not nothing, Miss Ellaway. That's love. And love makes people stupid." Mara's throat tightened. "He doesn't love me. He made a promise to my mother. And he's kept it, obsessively. Do you know how many times I've tried to get to you over the years? 5. 5 separate attempts, all stopped before they even got close. Because Cassian Vale was watching. Always watching." Marchetti's smile widened. "But now I have you. And when he comes, and he will come, I'm going to make him watch while I take you apart piece by piece. And then when he's broken and desperate and begging, I'll kill him too." "He's not coming." "Yes, he is." Marchetti turned away from her and picked up his whiskey glass again. "He's probably already on his way, tracking the vehicles that brought you here, coordinating his approach, planning his dramatic rescue." He took a sip. "But this time, he's walking into a real trap, not some hastily thrown-together ambush. A real, calculated execution." As if on cue, one of the men by the door pressed a hand to his earpiece, then spoke quietly. "Sir, we have movement. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south." Marchetti's smile turned savage. "See? Right on schedule." He looked at Mara. "Your knight in shining armor has arrived. Let's give him a proper welcome." The next 15 minutes moved with agonizing slowness. Marchetti's men positioned themselves throughout the room, by the windows, by the doors, behind furniture that could serve as cover. They were professionals, moving with the same cold efficiency Cassian's people had shown. Mara counted at least 12 of them, all armed, all ready. Marchetti had her move to the center of the room, directly in front of the windows. A spotlight. A target. Bait. In human form. When Cassian comes through that door, Marchetti said, settling back into his chair, I want him to see you first. I want that to be his last moment of hope before I rip it away. Mara's hands were shaking. She tried to reach for the panic button in her pocket, but with her wrists zip-tied, she couldn't get the angle right. The plastic dug into her skin, and she could feel blood starting to well up where the edges cut in. Then, from somewhere below, came the sound of gunfire. It was distant at first, muffled pops that could have been fireworks, but it grew louder, closer, punctuated by shouting and the crash of breaking glass. Marchetti's expression didn't change, but his grip tightened on his whiskey glass. How many? He asked the man by the door. Unknown, at least 20, maybe more. They came in through the garage and the loading dock simultaneously. Of course they did. Marchetti stood. Seal the doors. Nobody gets in or out. The man nodded and spoke into his radio. Seconds later, Mara heard heavy locks sliding into place. Steel reinforcements. This room was designed to be a fortress. The gunfire was getting closer. It sounded like it was on the floor directly below them now, and Mara could hear the distinct rhythm of automatic weapons firing in controlled bursts. Cassian's people. Had to be. He's going to get himself killed, Marchetti said, almost conversationally. All this effort, all these men, and for what? You're still going to die. He's still going to die. The only difference is how many bodies pile up in between. You don't know him, Mara said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. He doesn't lose. Everyone loses eventually, Miss Eloway. It's just a matter of when. The gunfire stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It stretched out, thick and suffocating, broken only by the sound of Mara's own ragged breathing. Then someone started pounding on the doors. Not knocking. Pounding, like they were trying to break through with their bare hands. Marchetti's men raised their weapons. 12 guns trained on the double doors. Waiting. The pounding stopped. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the doors exploded inward. Not from a battering ram. From explosives. Shaped charges that blew the locks and hinges and sent chunks of reinforced steel flying across the room. Marchetti's men scattered, diving for cover, and in the chaos, Cassian Vale walked through the smoke like death incarnate. He had a gun in each hand, and he used them with surgical precision. 2 shots. 2 of Marchetti's men went down before anyone could react. 3 more shots. 3 more bodies. Down! One of Marchetti's people screamed, and the room erupted into chaos. Mara dropped to the floor as bullets tore through the air above her head. She could hear men shouting, dying, the sound of bodies hitting the ground and glass shattering and metal ringing against metal. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw Cassian. He was moving like nothing she'd ever seen, fluid and brutal and absolutely focused. Every shot found a target. Every movement was calculated. He wasn't fighting. He was executing. And he was headed straight for her. One of Marchetti's men stepped between them, and Cassian didn't even slow down. He put 2 rounds in the man's chest and kept moving, his eyes locked on Mara the entire time. Then someone hit him from the side, a tackle that sent both of them crashing into a table. The wood splintered under their combined weight, and Cassian's guns went skittering across the floor. The man on top of him was huge, easily twice Cassian's size, and he had his hands around Cassian's throat. Mara watched in horror as Cassian's face started to turn red, his hands scrabbling for purchase. Without thinking, Mara lunged forward. Her hands were still zip-tied, but she managed to grab one of the fallen guns. It was heavier than the one Cassian had given her, and her hands were slippery with sweat, but she got her fingers around the grip and pointed it at the man choking Cassian. "Let him go," she said. The man looked at her and laughed. "You won't." Mara pulled the trigger. The recoil almost knocked the gun out of her hands, but the shot hit. The man jerked backward, blood blooming from his shoulder, and Cassian used the opening to drive his knee into the man's ribs. Something cracked. The man went down, and Cassian rolled to his feet, gasping for air. His eyes found Mara. "You okay?" "No, but I'm alive." "Good enough." Cassian grabbed one of his fallen guns and turned just as Marchetti emerged from behind an overturned desk, his own weapon raised. "Touching," Marchetti said. His voice was strained, and there was blood on his face from where flying debris had cut him. but ultimately pointless. He fired. Cassian moved, but not fast enough. The bullet caught him in the side, spinning him around. He went down hard, his gun sliding away. "No!" Mara screamed. She tried to reach him, but someone grabbed her from behind, one of Marchetti's surviving men. She fought, kicking and twisting, but with her hands tied, she couldn't get free. Marchetti walked toward Cassian, his gun still raised. "I told you, Cassian, everyone loses eventually." Cassian coughed, blood staining his lips. "Not today." "Yes, today." Marchetti aimed the gun at Cassian's head. "Any last words?" Cassian smiled. It was a terrible expression, all teeth and fury and absolute certainty. "Yeah, duck." For a split second, Marchetti looked confused. Then the windows exploded. The sound was deafening, a crack like the world splitting open. Mara felt the man holding her stumble backward as something massive punched through the floor-to-ceiling glass. Not something, someone. Irina Volkov came through the window on a rappelling line, rifle in hand, and she was firing before her boots even hit the ground. The man holding Mara went down. Two more of Marchetti's people followed, the room filled with the sound of automatic weapons fire and breaking glass and screaming. Marchetti spun toward the new threat, his attention diverted for just a second. It was enough. Cassian lunged from the floor, tackling Marchetti at the waist. They went down together, struggling for control of the gun. It fired once, twice, bullets going wild. Then Cassian got his hand around Marchetti's wrist and twisted until something popped. Marchetti screamed. The gun fell from his grip. Cassian grabbed it and pressed it to Marchetti's temple. "This is for Marcus," he said. Then he pulled the trigger. The sound was almost anticlimactic after everything else. Just a single shot, and then Marchetti was dead, his blood spreading across the expensive marble floor. Cassian stayed there for a moment, kneeling over the body, his chest heaving. Then he looked up at Mara. "It's over," he said. Mara couldn't move, couldn't speak. She just stared at him, at the blood soaking through his shirt, at the gun still in his hand, at the absolute exhaustion in his eyes. Then Irina was there, cutting the zip ties from Mara's wrists. "We need to go. Police will be here in minutes." Cassian tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Irina caught him, swearing in what sounded like Russian. "You're hit bad." "I know." Cassian's voice was getting weaker. "Get her out. That's all that matters." "We're all getting out," Irina said. She looked at Mara. "Can you walk?" Mara nodded. She moved to Cassian's other side, helping support his weight. Together, the three of them staggered toward the destroyed doors. Behind them, the room was a war zone. Bodies everywhere. Blood on the walls. The smell of gunpowder and death so thick it was almost solid. They made it to the elevator. Irina hit the button for the garage, and the doors slid shut just as sirens started wailing in the distance. Cassian slumped against the wall, his hand pressed to his side. Blood was seeping through his fingers, dark and steady. "Stay with me," Mara said. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Cassian, stay with me." His eyes focused on hers. "I kept my promise." I know you did, but you need to stay awake, okay? We're going to get you help." Mara, "No. Don't you dare say goodbye. Don't you dare." The elevator doors opened. Irina led them to a car, a different one, nondescript and fast. She shoved Cassian into the back seat, and Mara climbed in after him, pressing her hands to his wound to try to slow the bleeding. Irina got behind the wheel and floored it, tires screaming as they shot out of the garage and into the Chicago afternoon. In the back seat, Cassian's breathing was getting shallow. His skin was pale, and his eyes kept trying to close. "Look at me," Mara demanded. "Cassian, look at me." He did. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." "You matter too, you stubborn bastard. So don't you dare die on me, not after everything." Tears were streaming down her face, hot and desperate. Please don't die." Cassian raised one shaking hand and touched her cheek. His fingers came away wet. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for dragging you into this, for making you into someone who knows how to kill, for—" "Shut up," Mara said. "Just shut up and save your strength." "Irina," Cassian's voice was barely audible. "Get her somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't—" "I'm getting you both somewhere safe," Irina said from the front seat. "There's a doctor, loyalist. He'll patch you up." "If I don't, you will." Irina's voice was hard. Because you don't get to die before I do, you understand? That's not how this works. Cassian's eyes fluttered closed. Tell her. Tell me yourself, Mara said desperately. Stay awake, please. Just stay awake. But Cassian was already gone, his body going limp in her arms, his blood soaking through her borrowed clothes and pooling on the seat beneath them. No, Mara whispered, then louder. No! Irina, drive faster. He's not breathing. He's not. 3 minutes, Irina said. Her voice was tight, controlled. Hold on for 3 minutes. Mara pressed her hands harder against Cassian's wound, feeling his blood pulse between her fingers. She counted his heartbeats, weak and thready, but still there, still fighting. You don't get to leave me, she told him, even though he couldn't hear. Not like this. Not after making me care about whether you live or die. You owe me, Cassian Vale. You owe me. The car screeched around a corner. Through the window, Mara saw they were in a part of the city she didn't recognize, somewhere industrial, somewhere off the grid. Irina pulled into an alley and killed the engine. We're here. Help me get him inside. Together, they dragged Cassian from the car and through a rusted door that led into what looked like an abandoned factory. But inside was clean, sterile, with medical equipment and bright lights, and a man in scrubs who took one look at Cassian and started barking orders. They laid him on a table. The doctor cut away his shirt, revealing the bullet wound, high on his left side, still bleeding, worse than Mara had thought. Out, the doctor said to her. I need room to work. I'm not leaving him. You'll be in the way. I don't care. Irina grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Let him work. Cassian survived worse than this. Has he? Irina didn't answer. They stood in the corner and watched as the doctor worked. Suction and clamps and thread, stitching Cassian back together while his life hung in the balance. Mara couldn't look away, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but watch and pray to forces she'd never believed in that Cassian would survive this. Because somewhere between the library and the mansion and the meatpacking plant and this moment, something had shifted. Cassian wasn't just her protector anymore. He wasn't just the man who'd made a promise to her mother. He was something else, something that terrified her almost as much as losing him did. And if he died now, if he died after everything they'd been through, Mara knew she'd never recover from it. The doctor worked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 40 minutes. Finally, he stepped back, stripping off his bloody gloves. He'll live, he said, but he needs rest, real rest. No more gunfights for at least a month. Mara's legs gave out. She slid down the wall and sat there on the cold concrete floor, shaking with relief so intense it felt like pain. Irina crouched beside her. He's going to be fine. He almost wasn't. But he is. That's what matters. Irina helped her to her feet. Come on, you need to clean up. Again. Mara looked down at herself. More blood. Always more blood. She wondered if there would ever be a day when she wasn't covered in someone else's blood. But as she followed Irina to a sink in the corner, she looked back at Cassian lying on that table, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, and she thought maybe, just maybe, they'd actually survive this. All of it, together. And maybe that was enough. Cassian woke up 3 days later in a private room that smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. The first thing he saw was Mara, asleep in a chair beside the bed, her head resting on her folded arms. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed and pulled back in a messy knot, wearing the same clothes she'd had on when they'd pulled him out of that car. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his side, sharp and immediate, and he fell back against the pillows with a grunt that woke Mara instantly. Her eyes snapped open, and for a moment she just stared at him like she wasn't sure he was real. Then she was on her feet, her hand pressing against his shoulder to keep him down. Don't move, she said. Her voice was hoarse. You'll tear your stitches. How long? 3 days. You crashed twice on the table. The doctor said if we'd gotten there 5 minutes later, you wouldn't have made it. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her hand still on his shoulder. You scared the hell out of me. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't do it again. Cassian looked at her. Really looked. There was something different in her eyes, something harder and older than what had been there a week ago. She'd killed 2 men now. Watched her best friend die, held him while he bled out in the back of a car, and all of it showed in the way she held herself, the set of her jaw, the careful distance she maintained even while touching him. Marchetti? He asked. Dead. Elena confirmed it. The authorities found his body along with 12 others in that building. It's all over the news. Gang warfare, they're calling it. Turf dispute gone wrong. And my people? Scattered. Arena's been holding things together, but she says you need to make some calls soon. Let everyone know you're still alive and still in charge. Cassian nodded, then winced as the movement pulled at his wound. What about you? What about me? Are you okay? Mara was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I'm alive. I'm not hurt. But okay? She shook her head. I don't think I remember what that feels like anymore. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. Stop apologizing. You kept your promise to my mother. You protected me. That's what matters. At what cost? Cassian's voice was rough. You're not the same person you were 2 weeks ago. I did that to you. No. Mara's eyes were fierce. Life did that to me. Elena did that to me. Marchetti did that to me. You just gave me the tools to survive it. She stood up and moved to the window, looking out at whatever was beyond. I killed 2 people, Cassian. 2. And the worst part is, I don't regret it. I should feel guilty, right? I should feel sick or broken or traumatized. But all I feel is tired. That's normal. There's nothing normal about any of this. No. But it's normal for what you've been through. Cassian shifted carefully, trying to find a position that didn't make his side scream. The guilt comes later. When the adrenaline fades and you have time to think, that's when it hits you. Mara turned to face him. And when it does, you deal with it, one day at a time. You accept that you did what you had to do, and you find a way to live with it. Like you do. Like I do. Mara crossed her arms. The doctor says you need at least 6 weeks to heal properly. Maybe longer if you don't take it easy. I don't have 6 weeks. You don't have a choice. Arena's got your organization under control. Your enemies are either dead or running scared. For the first time in probably your entire life, you can actually rest. Rest is for people who can afford it. Cassian, Mara's voice was sharp. You almost died. You understand that, right? Another inch to the left and that bullet would have hit your liver. You'd be dead. So yes, you're going to rest, you're going to heal, and you're going to stop acting like you're invincible. Cassian stared at her. When did you get so bossy? When I had to watch you bleed out in my arms. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm not doing that again, ever. So you're going to listen to the doctor, and you're going to heal, and that's final. Something in Cassian's chest tightened. He'd had people work for him, fear him, respect him, but he'd never had someone care whether he lived or died with the kind of ferocity Mara was showing right now. Okay, he said quietly. I'll rest. Mara looked surprised. Really? Really? But only if you do the same. You look like you haven't slept since we got here. I haven't. Why not? She was quiet for a moment. Because every time I close my eyes, I see Elena, or Victor, or you dying on that table. And I just can't. Cassian held out his hand. Come here. Cassian, just come here. Mara hesitated, then took his hand. He pulled her gently down to sit beside him on the bed, ignoring the pain the movement caused. You're going to be okay, he said. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will be. How do you know? Because you're stronger than you think. You've survived things that would have broken most people. And you're still here, still fighting. That counts for something. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I don't feel strong. I feel broken. Broken and strong aren't mutually exclusive. Cassian squeezed her hand. Some of the strongest people I know are held together by scar tissue and sheer stubbornness. A tear slid down Mara's cheek, then another. And then she was crying, really crying, the kind of deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere primal and couldn't be stopped. Cassian pulled her against his good side and let her fall apart, his hand stroking her hair while she soaked his hospital gown with tears. They stayed like that for a long time, until Mara's sobs quieted to hiccups and her breathing evened out, until exhaustion finally claimed her and she fell asleep curled against him, one hand fisted in his gown like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. Cassian stayed awake, watching her sleep, and tried to ignore the fact that his promise to her mother had become something more complicated than simple protection. Somewhere along the way, Mara Ellaway had become someone he couldn't imagine living without, and that terrified him more than any bullet ever could. 2 weeks later, Cassian was cleared to leave the Safe House medical facility. Elena drove them back to the lakefront mansion in a new car with bulletproof glass and armor plating that made it drive like a tank. Mara sat in the back seat, staring out at the city she'd almost died in multiple times. Chicago looked different now, less like home and more like a battlefield where the bodies had been cleared but the bloodstains remained. "What happens now?" she asked as they pulled through the mansion gates. "Now we rebuild," Cassian said from the passenger seat. He was moving better but still favoring his left side. "Marchetti's territory is up for grabs. Other organizations will try to move in. We need to establish control before things get messy." "More messy than they already are?" "Much more." Cassian glanced back at her. "But that's my problem, not yours." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're free, Mara. The threat's gone. You can go back to your life, your apartment, your job at the library, everything." Mara felt something cold settle in her stomach. "You're kicking me out." "I'm giving you a choice." Cassian's voice was careful, controlled. "You never asked to be part of this world. I pulled you into it because I had to. But now you don't have to stay. And if I want to?" Cassian turned in his seat to face her fully. "Why would you want to?" Mara met his eyes. "Because the person who could go back to shelving books and pretending the world is safe doesn't exist anymore. Because I've seen what's out there, and I can't unsee it. And because—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Because what?" "Because I don't want to go back to being alone." The car pulled to a stop in front of the mansion. Elena got out without a word, giving them privacy. Through the tinted windows, Mara could see staff moving around inside the house, going about their routines like the past 2 weeks had been perfectly normal. Cassian was still watching her, his dark eyes unreadable. "You won't be alone. I'll make sure you're set up. New apartment, security, money so you don't have to worry about—" "That's not what I mean, and you know it." Mara's hands curled into fists. "I don't want your money or your security or whatever guilt-driven package you're offering. I want—" She took a breath. "I want to stay. Here, with you. If that's even an option." "It's not a good idea." "Why not?" "Because this life destroys people, Mara. You've seen what it does. The violence, the betrayal, the constant fear that someone's going to put a bullet in your head when you're not looking. That's not living. That's survival. And you deserve better." "Maybe I don't want better. Maybe I just want real." Mara leaned forward. "You've been honest with me about everything else, so be honest about this. Do you want me to leave?" Cassian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "No, I don't." "Then why are you trying to make me go?" "Because keeping you here is selfish. Because I've already taken too much from you, your innocence, your peace, your friend." His jaw tightened. "Because I look at you and I see someone I could actually care about. And in my world, caring about someone is the same as painting a target on their back. I already have a target on my back. Being away from you won't change that. But at least here, I know what I'm dealing with. I know the rules, and I know you'll keep me safe." "For how long? Until the next Marchetti shows up? Until someone else decides the best way to hurt me is through you?" "Then teach me." Mara's voice was steady, certain. "Teach me how to protect myself, how to move in this world without being a liability. You already started. Don't stop now." Cassian stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're serious?" "Completely. This isn't something you can undo, Mara. Once you're in this world, really in it, there's no going back to normal, no quiet life, no pretending you're just a librarian who reads books and goes home alone." "I know." "Do you? Because I need you to understand what you're choosing. The people I deal with, the things I do, they're not romantic or exciting or anything like the movies. They're brutal and ugly and permanent. And if you stay, you'll be part of that. All of it." Mara thought about Elena dying in her arms, about pulling the trigger and watching Victor fall, about the weight of the gun in her hand and the way it had felt almost natural. "I already am part of it," she said quietly. "The only question is whether I do it alone or with you." Cassian looked away, out the window, his profile sharp against the afternoon light. "Your mother would hate this. what I've done to you. My mother made a deal with you knowing exactly who you were. She trusted you to protect me. And you did. But she's gone, Cassian. And I'm the one who gets to decide what my life looks like now. And this is what you want? A life where you're always looking over your shoulder? Where everyone you meet might be an enemy? Where violence is just another Tuesday? I want a life where I'm not helpless, where I have some control over what happens to me, and I want... She stopped again. What? Mara forced herself to say it. I want to be around someone who sees me as strong enough to handle the truth. Someone who doesn't treat me like I'm fragile or broken or in need of constant protection. Someone like you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, Cassian turned back to her. If you stay, things change. You're not a guest anymore. You're part of this. That means training, real training, combat, weapons, strategy. Everything I know, you learn. Okay? It means being involved in decisions that will get people killed. Being present for conversations you can't unhear. Seeing things that will give you nightmares. I already have nightmares. It means giving up any illusion of normal. Your friends from before, if you had any besides Elena, they can't be part of your life anymore. It's too dangerous. For them and for you. I don't have any friends besides Elena, and she's dead. Cassian's expression softened fractionally. It also means trusting me, completely. Because in this world, hesitation kills. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to shoot, you shoot. No questions, no second guessing. I can do that. Can you? Because the next time someone puts a gun to your head, I might not be there to save you. You'll have to save yourself. And that means making choices you never thought you'd have to make. Mara thought about Victor, about the way the gun had kicked in her hands, about the absence of regret she'd felt watching him die. I've already made those choices, she said, and I'm still here. Cassian studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, you can stay, but on my terms. You do what I say. You learn what I teach. And if I ever think you're not safe here, if I think staying is going to get you killed, you leave. No arguments. Deal? Deal. And Mara? Cassian's voice dropped. This isn't some romantic arrangement where we play house and pretend everything's fine. I'm not good at relationships. I'm not good at feelings. I'm good at survival. That's what I can offer you. Nothing more. I'm not asking for more. Aren't you? The question hung in the air between them. Mara wanted to deny it, to say she was only interested in safety and security and learning how to protect herself. But it would be a lie, and Cassian would know it. I don't know what I'm asking for, she said finally. I just know I don't want to leave. Cassian held her gaze for another moment, then opened his car door. Come on, let's get you settled. Walk. The next 3 months passed in a blur of training and routine and slowly learning to exist in a world where violence was currency and trust was earned in blood. Mara trained with Elena every morning, hand-to-hand combat, weapons handling, tactical awareness. She learned how to clear a room, how to identify exits, how to read people's body language for signs of aggression. Her body transformed from soft and uncertain to lean and capable. Her hands developed calluses. Her reflexes sharpened. In the afternoons, she sat in on Cassian's meetings, learning the language of his world. Territory negotiations, supply chain logistics, the careful diplomacy required to keep rival organizations from turning disagreements into bloodbaths. She learned to recognize which men were loyal and which were just biding their time. Learned to spot lies and half-truths and the subtle ways people tested boundaries. At night, she and Cassian had dinner together. Sometimes they talked about the day. Sometimes they sat in silence. But always there was an awareness between them, a tension that neither of them acknowledged but both of them felt. Cassian kept his distance. He was professional, respectful, careful never to cross lines that couldn't be uncrossed. But Mara caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she wasn't looking, saw the way his jaw tightened when other men in his organization got too familiar with her, noticed how he always positioned himself between her and any potential threat, even in rooms full of his own people. She didn't push, didn't ask for definitions or labels or anything that might make him retreat further. She just existed in his orbit and tried to ignore the way her chest tightened every time he smiled at something she said. It was Elena who finally called her out on it. They were in the gym, working through a grappling sequence, when Irina pinned Mara to the mat and held her there. "You're distracted," Irina said. "I'm fine. You're thinking about him instead of the fight. That's how you get killed." Mara stopped struggling. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Irina released her and sat back. "You're in love with him." "I'm not." "Don't lie to me. I've known Cassian for 8 years. I've seen him with women. He's never looked at any of them the way he looks at you." Mara sat up, her heart pounding. "He doesn't look at me any particular way. He looks at you like you're the only thing in the world worth protecting." Irina's expression was unreadable. "And you look at him like he's the only thing in the world worth saving." "Even if that were true, it doesn't matter. He made it very clear this is just about survival. Cassian makes a lot of things clear that aren't actually true. He's very good at lying to himself." Irina stood and offered Mara a hand up. "But he's not good at lying to people who know him, and I know him. He cares about you, more than he's cared about anyone since his brother died." Caring and loving are different things, not in Cassian's world. He doesn't do halfway. Either he doesn't care at all, or he cares so much it consumes him. Irina grabbed a water bottle and took a long drink. "The question is what you're going to do about it." "Nothing. He set the boundaries. I'm respecting them." "Why?" "Because I owe him. He saved my life, kept his promise to my mother, gave me a place to be when I had nowhere else to go." "So you're repaying a debt?" "I'm being realistic." Irina laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You killed 2 men for him. You held him while he bled out. You chose to stay in a world that terrifies you because you didn't want to be away from him. That's not debt repayment, Mara. That's love. And the sooner you admit it, the sooner you can decide what to do about it." Mara thought about that conversation for days, turned it over in her mind while she trained, while she sat through meetings, while she lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling. Was Irina right? Was this love? She didn't know. She'd never been in love before. Her longest relationship had lasted 6 months and ended when the guy got tired of her panic attacks and constant need for reassurance. She thought that was normal, thought she was too damaged for anything real. But with Cassian, she didn't feel damaged. She felt seen, understood. Like all the broken parts of her that other people wanted her to hide or fix were just parts of who she was, and that was okay. She was still thinking about it when Cassian found her in the library one evening, curled up in her favorite chair with a book she wasn't reading. "Can I join you?" he asked. Mara nodded and he sat in the chair across from her. He'd healed well over the past months. The scar on his side was still visible, still red and angry looking, but he moved without pain now, without hesitation. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Just thinking." "About?" Mara closed her book. "About what comes next. I've been here 3 months. I've learned a lot. But I don't know what my role is supposed to be. Am I just training indefinitely? Am I supposed to start taking on actual responsibilities in your organization? What's the end game here?" Cassian was quiet for a moment. "What do you want it to be?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking." "I can't tell you what your life should look like, Mara. That's your choice. But I'm living in your house, training with your people, attending your meetings. At some point, that has to translate into something more defined." "Does it?" "Yes, because right now I feel like I'm in limbo, not part of your world, but not separate from it either. And I need to know—" She stopped, the words catching. "Know what?" Mara forced herself to say it. "I need to know if this is permanent, if I'm building a life here, or if you're just letting me stay until you figure out a better option." Cassian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Do you want it to be permanent?" "I asked you first. I'm asking you now." Mara set the book aside and met his eyes. "Yes, I want it to be permanent. I want to stay here. I want to be part of what you're building, and I want—" She swallowed hard. "I want to matter to you as more than just an obligation you inherited from my mother." The words hung in the air between them. Cassian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or fear? Or something that looked dangerously like hope. "You do matter to me," he said quietly. "More than you should." "Why shouldn't I?" "Because everyone I've ever cared about has died. My father, my brother, people I trusted, people I loved. And I can't—" His voice roughened. I can't watch that happen to you. So you're keeping me at a distance to protect me. I'm keeping you at a distance to protect myself. Cassian stood and moved to the window, his back to her. When I almost died in that building, when I was lying there bleeding out, all I could think about was that I'd failed. Failed your mother. Failed you. Failed to keep my promise. And then you were there, pressing your hands against my wound, crying and begging me not to die, and I realized something. What? He turned to face her. I realized that somewhere along the way, protecting you stopped being about a promise. It became about not wanting to exist in a world where you weren't in it. Mara's breath caught. Cassian, let me finish. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, keeping people out, refusing to let anyone matter enough to hurt me. And then you came along. This quiet librarian who should have been terrified of me but instead looked at me like I was worth something more than fear. And those walls started crumbling. Is that a bad thing? In my world? Yes. Because the moment someone realizes you care about something, they use it against you. They take it, break it, turn it into a weapon to destroy you with. I'm not going to be a weapon. You already are. Cassian's voice was raw. Marchetti saw it, used it, and he was right. You're my weakness, Mara. The thing that could bring everything I've built crashing down. Then why did you let me stay? Because I'm selfish. Because even knowing the risk, I couldn't stand the thought of you leaving. Because I'd rather have you here, in danger, than safe somewhere I can't reach you. He crossed the room and stopped in front of her chair, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. And because I've been lying to myself for 3 months about what you mean to me. Mara stood slowly, her heart hammering. What do I mean to you? Cassian reached out and touched her face, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. Everything. You mean everything. And then he was kissing her. It wasn't gentle or tentative or any of the things a first kiss was supposed to be. It was desperate and consuming and tasted like 3 months of restraint finally breaking. Mara kissed him back with equal ferocity, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. This is a terrible idea, Cassian said, his forehead resting against hers. Probably. It's going to make everything more complicated. I know. And I'm not good at this, at feelings, at being what someone needs. I don't need you to be good at it. Mara's voice was steady. I just need you to try. Cassian pulled back slightly to look at her. I can do that. But you have to understand, this world I live in, it doesn't allow for normal relationships. There won't be dates or flowers or romantic gestures. There will be danger and violence and long stretches where I'm distracted by things I can't tell you about. I know what your world looks like, Cassian. I've been living in it for 3 months, living on the edges of it. This would be different. If we do this, if we're actually together, you become a permanent target. Every enemy I have will know that hurting you is the fastest way to hurt me. Then we make sure they can't hurt me. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Mara gripped his face, forcing him to focus on her. You taught me how to fight, how to shoot, how to survive. You've spent 3 months making sure I could protect myself, so stop acting like I'm fragile. I'm not. Not anymore. Cassian searched her face. You're sure about this? About me? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth. When he pulled away, his eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. Okay, he said. Then we do this. Together. But my way. Which means you listen when I tell you something's too dangerous. You don't take unnecessary risks. And you never, ever put yourself in a position where I might lose you. Understood? Understood. As long as you agree to the same rules. Cassian's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Deal. 14 months passed. Mara stood on the balcony of the lakefront mansion, watching the Chicago skyline glitter in the twilight. Her hand rested on the slight curve of her belly, 5 months along, carrying Cassian's daughter, though they wouldn't tell anyone the gender until she was born. It felt safer that way, more protected. The past year had been a strange amalgamation of violence and domesticity. Mara had taken on real responsibilities in Cassian's organization, managing community outreach programs, overseeing legitimate business acquisitions, serving as a liaison to politicians who needed careful handling. She'd learned to navigate board meetings with the same skills she'd learned to navigate interrogations. The Vail Foundation had been her idea, a network of literacy centers, medical grants, youth mentorship programs, all funded by Cassian's less legitimate enterprises. It gave them cover, gave her purpose, and genuinely helped people in neighborhoods that most of Chicago had forgotten existed. Elena's family had been taken care of. Mara had made sure of that. Her father's remaining debts were cleared, her mother's medical bills paid, her younger brother's college tuition secured. It didn't bring Elena back. Didn't erase the betrayal or the blood or the way she'd died in Mara's arms. But it felt like honoring the girl Elena had been before fear had twisted her into something unrecognizable. Cassian had kept his promise about teaching her. Mara could clear a room now without thinking, could identify threats before they materialized, could shoot with enough accuracy that Irina had stopped correcting her form. She'd been present for 3 situations that had turned violent, and she'd handled all of them without freezing, without panic attacks. She still had nightmares. Still woke up sometimes with her heart racing and her hands shaking, reaching for a gun that wasn't there. But Cassian was always beside her in those moments, pulling her close, reminding her she was safe. They'd gotten married 6 weeks ago in a small ceremony with only Irina and a handful of Cassian's most trusted people present. No white dress, no traditional vows, just 2 people who'd survived hell together, promising to keep surviving. The door to the balcony opened. Cassian stepped out, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd fully healed. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, his hands settling over hers on her belly. "You've been out here a while," he said. "Just thinking." "About?" Mara leaned back against him. "About how different my life is now compared to a year ago. I was a librarian. I lived alone. I had panic attacks every time something unexpected happened. And now I'm—" She gestured vaguely at the city spread out before them. "This. Regrets? No, just processing." Cassian rested his chin on her shoulder. "Our daughter's going to grow up in a strange world. She's going to grow up protected, loved, strong. She's going to grow up knowing her father kills people for a living. She's going to grow up knowing her father does what's necessary to keep his family safe." Mara turned in his arms to face him. "We'll figure it out the same way we've figured out everything else. By making it up as we go?" "Exactly." Cassian's expression softened in that way it only did when they were alone. "I love you. You know that, right?" He didn't say it often. The words still felt foreign in his mouth, like he was speaking a language he'd never quite mastered. But when he did say them, he meant them with every part of himself. "I know," Mara said. "I love you too. Even though I turned you into someone who knows how to kill, you didn't turn me into anything. You just gave me permission to become who I needed to be to survive." She touched his face, her thumb tracing the scar through his eyebrow. "Besides, you're one to talk. I turned you into someone who says things like, 'I love you,' and actually means it." Touché. They stood there in the gathering dark, the city spreading out below them like a map of everything they'd fought for and everything they still had to protect. Somewhere out there, new threats were forming, new enemies were plotting, but tonight they were safe, together. And that was enough. "Come inside," Cassian said eventually. "Irina's bringing over that case file you wanted to review. The one about the North Side warehouses? That's the one. She thinks we can convert 3 of them into community centers without raising suspicion." Mara smiled. "Look at you. Crime boss by night, philanthropist by day." "I prefer strategically diversified." "Of course you do." They went inside together, Cassian's hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the doors. The mansion was warm, bright, full of the quiet sounds of life continuing. Staff moved through the halls, security systems hummed. Somewhere in the distance a phone was ringing. It wasn't normal, would never be normal, but it was theirs. And for Mara, who'd started this journey as a quiet librarian afraid of her own shadow, that was more than enough. She'd learned that some lives begin in silence, some in violence, and some, like hers, in the space between terror and survival, where falling down on a rain-soaked sidewalk becomes the first step toward becoming someone powerful. She'd learned that fear doesn't make you weak, it makes you careful. And careful people survive. She'd learned that love in a world built on violence looks different than the love she'd read about in books. It's harder, darker, more complicated, but it's also more honest, more real. And she'd learned that sometimes the monsters under your bed aren't the ones you need to fear. Sometimes they're the ones who teach you how to become a monster yourself, just enough to survive in a world that wants to devour you whole. Cassian had done that for her, not because she'd asked, not because it was easy, but because he'd made a promise to a dying woman, and in keeping that promise, he'd found something he didn't know he was missing. Purpose, connection, love. Mara settled onto this couch and opened the case file Elena had left, scanning the details of properties and potential uses. Cassian sat beside her, his laptop balanced on his knee, handling the darker business that funded all of this. The shipments, the territories, the careful negotiations that kept his empire running. Different worlds, different purposes, but the same goal: survival, protection, building something that mattered. Outside, Chicago glittered in the dark. Inside, a former librarian and a crime boss sat side by side, planning futures and raising empires, and preparing to bring a daughter into a world that was beautiful and brutal in equal measure. And if you'd told Mara Ellaway a year ago that this would be her life, that she'd be married to Chicago's most dangerous man, carrying his child, running programs that helped people while simultaneously being part of an organization that broke laws as casually as breathing, she would have thought you were insane. But she'd learned something important in the past year. Insanity and survival often look exactly the same. The only difference is whether you're brave enough to choose it. Mara had chosen, not once, but over and over. Every day she stayed, every time she picked up a gun, every moment she stood beside Cassian and refused to back down. She'd chosen survival, strength, love, and in a world that had tried to make her small and afraid, that choice was the most powerful thing she'd ever done. So she sat there in the warm light of the mansion, one hand on her belly and the other holding Cassian's, and she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Because some stories end in darkness, some end in light, and some, like theirs, end in the space between, where survival becomes purpose, where fear becomes strength, and where falling becomes the first step toward learning how to fight. That was their story, and it was far from over. But tonight, in this moment, it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.